It's now time for the Sit Down with Dontony.
The Sit Down, where Dontony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Dontony.
And now, your host, Dontony.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Paisan, what's going on, everybody? The dog father, the pod father is here, complete with a double espresso. As the shirt says, let's see. There we go. So many assholes, so few bullets. So many assholes, so few bullets. Ford Fairlane, 1990. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? It's Sunday night. God, do I really need to look at the calendar? March 1st, 2026. Welcome to your latest edition of the Sit Down. Hope everyone is having a good weekend. Wrestling-wise, I hope everyone has enjoyed the last week of pro wrestling. There's been some ups. There's been some downs. And there's been some pretty rough stuff. I don't know what the hell they were thinking on Friday with SmackDown, putting that guy out there under the mask. How many people really thought that that was the end of the storyline? I mean, why would you? I mean, listen, all of us knew it was going to continue. And with the insertion of Logan Paul into the Elimination Chamber because Bronson Reed got injured, wait till the Chamber, maybe on Raw, we'll get some update on that. But why leave fans with a bad taste in their mouth for even 24 hours? Yeah, I saw people saying like, oh, let the storyline play out. Let the storyline play out. And then I think about the crate. Do you remember about 3 weeks ago, we had a little joke? We did a play on the gobbledygooker. I put the gobbledygooker in heels and we called it the hobbly hooker. It's just kind of like satire. And how many people out there felt that we got a gobbledygooker moment on the Elimination Chamber with Danhausen making his debut? Now, I want to say something right at the beginning of this show. Before I give you my overall thoughts of Elimination Chamber and where we go from here, I want to say this right up front. And I've said this for a long time. So if anybody of my regulars out there, I don't need to prove it. Right? I am a fan of Danhausen. I like the guy. You may remember that when the rumors was that WWE was interested in him, I said, he'll have a little mingling with R-Truth, and then slowly he will replace. He is that comedy guy for the future. He'll sell a lot of merchandise. He is extremely well-liked in the wrestling world. Forget all of us. Danhausen is one of those good guys out there that doesn't have controversy. He doesn't have controversy. So him signing with WWE, I'm happy for him. Him making his debut, no issues, except WWE knew that everybody in their mind believed that it was Chris Jericho or nothing in the box. And that is an extreme. Now, I know what WWE's mindset is. We never told you that it was going to be Chris Jericho. We didn't give you any signs. Yeah, but people were holding a clipboard. List of Jericho. That's their out. They didn't give us any signs that it could be Jericho. The problem I had is that we all anticipated to be Jericho. And it made sense. Jericho made his WWF debut in 1999 in the state of Illinois. And he returns in the state where it all started, almost to the town where it all started. And then you do a countdown for a crate. And WWE has a bad history with surprises like that. Tell me one. Listen, the Jericho countdown is different. But tell me one from the egg to this. Tell me where it resulted in something good. And you do it in Chicago, one of the hardest places, to really please people. Oh, well, we're giving CM Punk hometown. His wife, it's not her hometown, but WWE wants you to believe that. All right, she's going to get a championship victory. So Chicago fans will be happy. They got Punk, they got AJ Lee. They'll like this. CM Punk and Danhausen, very good friends. No, it was a fucking epic fail. It was a fail. And, listen, obviously it's not his fault. And I replace the girls with the gobbledygookers because that's the vibe it came off. The only other vibe that came off with me, I wrote this on X. Some people got the correlation. I wrote very evil, very yellow. Anybody notice that the colors were the same as AEW Collision? I mean, listen, Danhausen has had red and white and black before, but that yellow, it's not even like a piss-colored yellow. That's Collision yellow. Like if we invented a new Crayola crayon, that is Collision yellow. That was AEW Collision's colors. That looked like AEW Collision. So we got that. Big letdown. Not fair to Danhausen. I want to make that clear right at the beginning, because some people will see the thumbnail and be like, oh, dontony, you and, stupid, oh, yeah, doing AI with the gobbledygookers. I saw somebody on X get mad at me with the Femi pom-pom girl. Yeah, we'll talk about her too. Because, something amazing about X that, not a lot of people like to say because they need X, for attention, for hits, to push their brand, obviously. So I don't blame them. But, I saw one woman, I won't use the word she said because she is black and she used a word that, she can say that I can't. But she's like, these using AI like that. And I looked at her page, and you can go on my X account and you'll see who it is. I looked at her page and I see, not all, but I see photos where they're photoshopped. And I say to myself, woman, she identifies her as she, woman. Is there really a big difference if I would have photoshopped Femi or photoshopped the pose a little bit differently? I mean, we've been fucking photoshopping for 30 years. All right, AI is a quicker way of photoshopping. And honestly, the computer does it a hell of a lot better than me. I mean, I still have in this fucking computer, because we were joking about it. All right, we could take Danhausen off the screen. All right, this is a Photoshop that I did 25 years ago. Here's another Photoshop I did when we were doing Breakfast with Blassie in the mid-2000s. I mean, we would Photoshop stuff. Tell me what's really the big difference. It's not. People don't like it when it doesn't fit, their agenda. And we'll talk about Pom Pom Girl a little bit later because I'm a little annoyed, at that situation too. But anyway, feel free in the chat to express your thoughts on Elimination Chamber. I will be very, very quick with my thoughts. I got a lot wrong. And I don't have much of an issue with it. What I did, let me just give you quick thoughts about all the matches. AJ Lee winning the women's championship, somebody had pointed out, and I did the checking, and it is correct, but there is an asterisk next to it also. Somebody had pointed out that the only time that AJ Lee had ever tapped out in her WWE career was against Natty. Natty, I think, didn't even realize that. And, like people are making a big deal about it today. And I said, I got to do my research to see if that is correct. And sure enough, it is correct. What I also realize is the last time AJ Lee was in WWE was the Divas era in full swing. And the majority of matches that AJ Lee had in her WWE career the first time around were against the Bellas, were against Alicia Fox, against Caitlyn, Beth Phoenix, who stopped using a submission move. My point is, I think Natty was the only one using a submission move at the time. So no shit, there's no one else that she tapped out to. But in doing so, with that research, I paid a little attention at her record. And I was kind of surprised at some of the big spurts of losses that she had against the Bellas back then. But what I did notice is, the caliber of her opponents was much different than it is now. And, when you see a lot of her victories back then, you'll usually see a Bella, a Fox, a Caitlyn. You don't see the huge names of today and the progression of women's wrestling. So my only issue with her winning the women's championship is, now what? All right, if she's going to hang around until WrestleMania or a little bit afterwards, fine. But I want to see her face the top talent of today. I want to see, and I don't want to just see a Maxine Dupree, an Ivy Nile. I want to see her have some, upper card matches. Even a Natty, I'm fine with it. And I'm sure Natty will do the favors. I don't know if it'll help her new run. What is it? Natalia elevates, Natty decimates, and her current run dissipates. She still has not been repaired since she fell asleep outside the ring a couple of weeks ago. We're supposed to just not remember that, but so AJ Lee, where do you go from here? Some people are like, oh no, Becky Lynch rematch WrestleMania. I'm like, that's 2 months away. That's 6 weeks away. Let's be honest, AJ Lee has been back since August. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. That would be 8 months back. And you look at the matches, it's a little bit less to be desired. And what I don't want to see happen, and this is in support of AJ Lee, I want to make this clear. What I don't want to see happen is the man in the man. The man in the man. You remember that? Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, WWE decided to bring their relationship on camera. This is when Seth was feuding with Baron Corbin and who's the other person? And oh my God, I'm Jordan. Who's the young lady that left wrestling to go to OnlyFans? Attention. I'm drawing a blank right now. Someone in Lacey Evans. Thank you very much, Bloody Money. Lacey Evans. You remember that? It backfired. People were not liking that relationship on camera. And we're getting the repeat of that with CM Punk and AJ Lee. The difference is CM Punk is much more liked now compared to Seth Rollins back then, because Seth Rollins had a flurry of runs that he was pretty much a heel. So it's a little bit different. Plus AJ Lee, if we're being honest, a lot of people like to walk on eggshells because they're afraid, because if you criticize AJ Lee a little bit too much, then, hey, look at what she's been through and look at what she's battled to come back and look at what she's still going through now. And I admire all that. And I'm not criticizing her. All I'm saying is that you don't want to have a repeat where people start to get turned off because you want to put them as the power couple with gold on television week in and week out and week in and week out. That's the only thing I'm concerned about, because especially now, especially now when things are a shitload more expensive with WWE. You know, suddenly the Fatu family are a bunch of bitches and complainers. You know, latest Jacob Fatu about Jey Uso. Why don't you just shut up and be a fan? Now, that's the new thing with Triple H and everybody else. Shut up and be a fan. Nah. Jey Uso was on ESPN's First Take last week, and Jey Uso is like, Oos. Why don't you go to the show? Oos. And maybe you'll feel the vibe, and Oos. And maybe you'll change your mind. Oos. And my first answer was, are you paying? Are you paying? I ain't spending hundreds of dollars to walk in there and then walk out and say, I kind of do feel the Heat vibes. It's nothing personal against Jey Uso. It's just Jey Uso became pretty much a cartoon character. And it's not, interpreted in the ring, and it's hidden by a lot of interaction with fans. And when people start complaining about it, and let me say something else before I go any further, because I hope everyone out there is really starting to understand something that I said about 3 months ago, that WWE is booking for Unreal. WWE is booking for Unreal more than you think, because Unreal is Netflix. Netflix is everything, mostly everything. And everything is WWE Unreal right now. So I saw a super chat come in about Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre bitching in an interview that his championship match might be a multi-man match. What's the purpose of the Elimination Chamber then? I see Cody Rhodes do an interview this weekend, and Cody Rhodes is saying, there's more in the people in the WWE that, really have a complaining too much about the fans. I see Roman Reigns kind of criticizing the current WWE hierarchy and a lot of the top talent and saying, I gave you a 2-year head start and blah, 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 blah. Listen, my friends, wrestlers didn't suddenly all grow a set and start saying this stuff publicly, like, wow, I can't believe he said that. Whoa, I can't believe he said that. Oh, I can't believe he said that. Do we do like with Stevie Richards? Did you see that with Stevie Richards in the car accident? Vince's car accident. I'm not kidding. I love Stevie Richards' podcast, but it's almost like comical at this point. He does a live reaction of Vince McMahon's car accident, and his reaction side by side with is this. If you want to do, then I do this. I do this. I know we're bouncing back and forth, but that's what happens when a double espresso hits you in the meantime. I'll get to the Vince thing in a second. My point is, don't buy into what Drew McIntyre says. Don't buy into what Cody Rhodes says. Don't buy into what Roman Reigns says. Don't buy into what CM Punk says on all these interviews. They're trying to make it feel as real as it can get. When Drew did it 2 years ago, it stood out. Drew McIntyre storms out of the building, gets into his car. We don't know if he'll be back. He walks out of Busted Open, and it was part work, part shoot. We don't know what Drew McIntyre's vision. He was the only one that really was doing it that deep and hardcore at the time. Now with WWE Unreal, they're booking for Unreal. All this stuff you're seeing, they want everybody online to think that this is gossip and it's dirt, and people are starting to call each other out. Oh my God, oh my God. Take notice of the people that don't open their mouths. And it's usually the people that are not really into the WWE real part of it. But they're booking for Unreal. So when you see all this complaining and everything, understand they want you to think that this trickles over to WrestleMania, this trickles over into other shows, it trickles over into other happenings. This is their way of trying to shift our attention, paying attention to, oh yeah, look, Cody's with us. Cody agrees, the Fatu family, a bunch of whiners all of a sudden, shut up. No, there's a lot of bitching and complaining. And, you see what happened with Danhausen. It's not his fault. I mean, you got a bunch of retards in WWE management creative. If they didn't walk into Chicago and like, what do we do? Everybody thinks it's going to be Jericho. Blah, 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 blah. And what happened? Somebody backstage like, boss, we never gave any hints that it was Jericho. We never, they believed it was that, we never alluded to that, so it's on them. It's not on us. You're right. Just shut up and be a fan. No, you see Saudi Arabia fans complaining. You see other fans complain, other countries. You're not doing it because it's kind of like what AEW fans are doing right now with fuck ICE. Now when Brody King comes out for a match, it's always like, fuck ICE, fuck ICE, fuck his opponent and fuck ICE too. Fuck Don Callis and fuck ICE. All right, we get it. I totally understand, why, people are pissed off with ICE. And even me last week talking about that indie wrestler in Florida, which we uncovered some interesting stuff that transpired since, which we will not talk about tonight. But, still, it does feel like there's a lot of overreach there. But then you realize that people are doing it more about a thing than anything else, and it kind of loses its luster. But, getting back to the Elimination Chamber, and then I'll mention quickly the Vince McMahon thing, because we got some interesting stuff. We're not going to do it this week. Next week we'll have some fun with it, but I got a shitload more footage, a shitload more about the car accident that even the big sites out there don't have, because I'm an insurance guy, because I'm licensed in Connecticut, because I actually had a friendly conversation with somebody in the legal affairs division and gave me some extra info, which is pretty interesting. But let me just finish up my quick thoughts about Elimination Chamber. Then we'll open the floor to all of your questions and reaction, and then we'll go from there. But first of all, so AJ Lee, I just hope that it's not simply just a build to a rematch at WrestleMania. And we're probably going to get the Battle Royal or maybe a tournament to determine the next number one contender who faces AJ Lee at WrestleMania and this and that. That could very well be happening too. We might even have a couple of weeks where Becky Lynch, insists that she gets a rematch, and they're going to show footage of what happened at the Chamber with the referee getting knocked out, and this happened, and she's going to call it unfair, and then Anna Pierce is just going to give the rematch. We don't know, but that kind of feels like what this may be leading to, and all it's going to do is eat up weeks and eat up weeks and eat up weeks. I just hope there's a little bit more there, and the most amazing thing about it is it's the Women's Intercontinental Championship. It's not even the women's title. You got Stephanie Vaquera and Jade Cargill with their women's champion. This is a secondary title. So the fact that we're putting that much interest in a secondary title is a good thing. It actually is a good thing. It is a very good thing. But, what happens to the Lyra Carriers and the Baileys and everybody else? I want to see where this goes. But I thought Becky Lynch was going to retain, because my issue was, okay, if AJ Lee wins, now what? Now what? So now we're at the now what. So let's see what happens. I'm an open book with that. I want to see where it goes, and then I will critique it, but I'm not going to crap on it now. They had a great match yesterday, told a great story. Becky Lynch, it's not hype, man. I've said this for a while. And this is before What Culture and Sports Illustrated and everybody else said it. I think she is the GOAT of this generation. I, for a long time, thought it was Charlotte Flair 1, Asuka 2, and Becky Lynch 3. But when I saw Becky Lynch starting to really give back, go to NXT, the Tiffany Strattons and others that she was mingling with, trying to elevate some of those women to the next level. You saw what she was trying to do with some talents, and even Indy Hartwell and others. And you were like, okay, that's what's different with Charlotte Flair. And that's not Charlotte Flair's fault. That's WWE Creative that decided, no, we're not going to have Charlotte Flair do that. No, that's a big step down. No. So the fact that she was able to do that and help elevate, that's just something additional. But I do believe that she is the GOAT of this generation, because whether she's annoying or not, whether you like her character or not, whether her voice is irritating or not, every aspect of what a women's wrestler does, she does it well. From talking to wrestling to telling a story to help elevating to selling to buy, giving it, taking it, everything that she does is at a top level. And, so we'll see where it goes. CM Punk defeating Finn Balor. Obviously, there was no other outcome that would be happening in that. I am very, very, very surprised that Judgment Day did not try to get involved, because that would have been so much of an easier, or Dominic Mysterio minimum, that would have been a much easier way to proceed this further, because I've been saying for about a little over a month now that I think it's going to be Dominic versus Finn at Mania. And you could have easily had Dominic come out and it backfire, and then you have a confrontation on Raw. The problem is we don't know what's happening with Penta. Is Penta going to be your next Intercontinental Champion? Or does Dominic retain? Does Dominic versus Finn at Mania involve a championship? Obviously, we will know tomorrow, 24 hours from now, because the title match is on Monday. But to me, Balor is where Drew McIntyre was a little over 2 years ago. You guys remember, go back 2.5 years, Holiday Tour 2023, starting around there, and you see a lot of house shows. This is before TKO started pulling back all those extra live events. Drew McIntyre was losing over and over and over. And even having hints of comedy, he would fight Jey Uso over and over and over. And it would be repetitive at all these house shows where Jey Uso's doing the yeet thing and Drew McIntyre teases that he's going to do the yeet thing also. And he starts doing it and the fans start cheering him and he's going along with it. And Jey Uso's laughing, and then Drew McIntyre ends up, showing he's a heel and turns, then he ends up losing the match anyway. And that went on for a while. And then they turned the corner with Drew McIntyre. And I feel like Finn Balor right now is right at that moment where they started to focus a little bit more on Drew McIntyre. So I think Finn Balor's future will be bright. It does seem like they're going in a rotation with older wrestlers. Randy Orton has done too much in his career to have that period of time, although there was a moment where he was getting bitched out from the new bloodline and everything else. But you see Randy Orton now getting the focus. You see Drew now getting it. You're going to see ultimately Finn Balor get it. Down the line, LA Knight may end up getting it. And you're seeing like this pattern, like, okay, we'll get to a point where we start putting the focus on someone, in the latter part of their career. Even CM Punk to an extent. CM Punk might have been a little bit inflated because of Seth Rollins' injury, but you see that, repetitiveness there. But we'll see if there's a title or not. But they did not have Dominic come out yesterday. And I didn't think JD would come out, because I think what could happen is JD is going to try to be the glue between both sides. You remember a while back, I thought the WrestleMania match should be Liv Morgan versus Raquel Rodriguez for the women's championship. And Roxanne Perez is in the middle. She doesn't want to see fighting on either side. But it's almost like, look, whoever wins, the title's going to stay in the Judgment Day. And then Roxanne, obviously reveals her card at Mania, turning against Liv or turning, you know what I mean? Like, we thought that was going to be the plan. Now it kind of feels like they are doing that plan, but with the men. Dominic versus Finn, Jaden McDonough in the middle. He doesn't want to see either side fight. Might even tease Finn, get a little bit mad at JD, which they did already a little bit. Remember, brothers fight, brothers make up. And then at WrestleMania, JD reveals his hand. So, CM Punk winning yesterday, there was no issues with it. I had no issue with the match. The match was fine. But it felt like a match that was done simply because they were in Chicago. And yeah, know your audience. This was, about the hometown hero defending his championship. It felt more of like a Saturday night's main event match to me than anything else. But CM Punk retains there. As far as the 2 Elimination Chamber matches, I'll say this. Rhea Ripley was the tag team champion leading into Friday. So when everybody and their mother, including yours truly, were doing predictions, the idea was Rhea Ripley's already got a championship. Then what happens? She loses the championship title, the tag team titles on SmackDown, and now suddenly she skyrockets as the odds-on favorite to win it. And, I don't have an issue with Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill at WrestleMania. Obviously, that is going to be really fucking interesting. I'm already waiting for the Kermit the Frog promos. Oh, Jade, when I get to Mania, I will do this. As we talk about on Mondays. It's an interesting dynamic. It's different. I'm fine with Rhea Ripley taking on Jade Cargill. Tiffany Stratton, listen, she's brought up to the main roster. She just did an interview feeling that the last year has been a little bit stale. A lot in WWE has been stale, Tiffany. It's not just you. But now you realize that, okay, we got to get the biggest names to try to generate more sales. Now you have Rhea Ripley feuding with Jade Cargill, the present versus the future, for the women's championship. The thing is that Rhea Ripley is a Raw wrestler. And if you remember, we talked about 4 or 5 weeks ago that we thought that, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky being the tag champs is the way to go. This is even before they won the titles against the Kabuki Warriors. The idea was that now they could go to SmackDown and go to Raw because there's only one set of women's tag team champs in WWE. So getting Rhea Ripley on SmackDown a little bit kind of gives a little interaction with Damian Priest again, who has had a very shitty past 12 months, if we're being honest. A lot of people had a shitty 12 months, Tiffany. Sami Zayn has had a shitty 12 months. Damian Priest. We could go down the line, and it's not their fault. It's somebody to be creative. But Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley is something fresh. It could go very, very well, or it could go very, very south very quickly. The chamber match was fine. Me, I'm a little bit of a nitpicker. Some of what I saw was kind of caca. When Alexa Bliss was going to do Sister Abigail, and obviously she's waiting for Asuka to spit the mist in her face. And if you go watch it again, it was kind of brutal to just see Alexa just standing there. And I'm like, okay, I could have walked my dog, could have made a coffee, take a leak, check my emails, check my voicemail, text someone, make a hot pocket, maybe even sneak in a dump. And she'd still be in the position to do the Sister Abigail. It just was took too long. But to me, Raquel Rodriguez shined. And Raquel Rodriguez, now, you kind of feel that I think the Judgment Day is done by Mania. I think the Judgment Day is done. I think it's run its course. It's taken way too fucking long to have the split between Dominic and Finn. That's been going on for over 2 years, maybe more. They have dragged it and dragged it and dragged it. It's time. It's the, what it kind of reminds me of? Let's use a child for an example. A child, okay, it's like a child that is riding a bicycle on training wheels. Okay, this was 2.5, 3 years ago with Judgment Day. All right, I get it. You tease it for 3 months, 6 months, fine. But it's kind of like a child that is learning to ride a bike, and they're on training wheels for 6 months. And now the fucking kid has nailed it and could ride the bicycle. And now it's time to take the training wheels off. And right when the parents are about to unscrew the training wheels, the kid starts crying and complaining. No, not yet, please. No, keep the training wheels on. No. And that goes on for 2.5 years. Now it's 2.5 years later, and guess what? Now that bicycle's too small. Take the training wheels off. That bike, you outgrew that bike. That's it. So Judgment Day, a lot of it's run its course. Carlito is no longer there. Finn Balor, you're obviously going to start branching out singles again. Jaden McDonough, I'm a little concerned about out of everybody. And if Raquel Rodriguez turns on Liv after Liv wins the championship against Stephanie Vaquer, if they still go that route, you kind of see where this goes very quickly. Dominic, it's fine. Dominic will be perfectly fine. But Judgment Day has run its course. And I got to be honest with you. I think the Bloodline, a lot of people will say, the Bloodline was bigger than the NWO. Bloodline was able to get to that point because of the pandemic, especially Roman Reigns. The pandemic allowed Roman Reigns for WWE to take their time and dictate the reaction. Trust me, I was in fucking Thunderdome. A lot of you remember. I was in Thunderdome, 13 times? And, you had the white noise. You didn't have to worry about fans chanting what or, just booing them or, crapping on certain things. You didn't have a live crowd there, so you can dictate things any way you want. You could pre-record stuff. You could edit stuff. You could just maximize it. You could test things. That's something that the pandemic allowed. Pandemic allowed certain people to really be extra creative. Now, once we got live fans back, Judgment Day took it to another level. Bloodline. And Sami Zayn stuff, and it was epic. I wouldn't say that it was bigger than the NWO. Don't tell me about merchandise or ticket sales or WWE worth, because it was a different world then. You want a good example? I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. But Hulk Hogan's WrestleMania 1 boots just sold over the weekend at an auction for $1,037,000. First time any wrestling memorabilia has ever gone over $1 million. And I've seen people report that those boots were sold 3 years ago for $66,000. All right, so you just let that sink in from it. Yes, Hulk Hogan died, obviously. But to go from 66,000 to $1,037,000 is some weird shit going on in the collectible world right now. But my point is, you go back to the NWO days. The NWO, the Monday Night Wars went to a whole different level because of it. You can't even compare ratings back then to now. Because you didn't have streaming. You didn't have other platforms. You can't compare ticket sales then to now. You can't compare a lot of stuff then to now. So when I hear interviews like, oh, this is the most generated, look at this net worth of WWE, look at the stock. That's ridiculous to say, because it was a totally different world at that time. You could say that about even baseball contracts. You could say that about baseball teams. You could say that about anything. But, I think for this last 20 years, I think the Bloodline is the biggest faction, the most successful one. Judgment Day, I would say, is not too off. I would have said Bullet Club as number 2 if it would have been bigger in the United States. You know where it's big in the United States? For T-shirts. Bullet Club, everybody wanted a T-shirt, but Bullet Club did not, take over in the ratings. Even later on when you'd see remnants of Bullet Club in TNA and remnants of Bullet Club teasing in AEW, and you saw little bits and pieces there. Bullet Club was gigantic overseas, and it had its following in the States, there's no question. But you didn't sell out 20,000-seat arenas. You didn't do this, you didn't do that because of it. And if somebody says to me, oh, about Madison Square Garden, we're talking about on a consistent basis. But I think the Judgment Day is right up there as well. I think the Judgment Day is top 3 or 4 factions. You know why I say that? I have not purchased any Judgment Day merchandise. I will admit that. But how many factions can go for 3+ years? You don't complain too much. Have we really complained much about the Judgment Day? I mean, really? I mean, we got a little tired when it was Rhea Ripley and Edge and Damian Priest and Finn Balor every week. The Judgment Day is running Monday Night Raw. You know, it got tiresome after a while, but anything that's force-fed and overfed to you gets tiresome. You know, it became a little bit tiresome. But you look at the 3+ years, I don't find myself complaining much at all. So, but it's time. It's time to move on. It is definitely time to move on. There's aspects of it, but never did I, it was like, end it already. It's not a perfect, no faction is perfect. You know, I was digging NWO back in the day, but it got a little bit annoying at times, no question. But I'd rather have it on TV than not. But it's time. Those training wheels should have been taken off a year and a half ago. So let's see what happens. I thought Kiana James had a pretty good performance. Asuka is the veteran. You know, Asuka is the one there that's, you know, old reliable. And it's a shame to look at it like that, but that's what it is, obviously. It was okay. As far as the men's Elimination Chamber, and my final thought about Chamber is going to be my most important statement to make about last night. Because overall, I was left with a final conclusion about Elimination Chamber. I think a lot of you will agree. But first of all, we realize now that absolutely, positively, Bronson Reed was supposed to win the match on Raw. Absolutely was supposed to win the match on Raw. Bronson Reed would have been the one that would have had multiple eliminations at the Chamber, and then it would have been Seth Rollins hitting Bronson Reed with the curb stomp and then revealing that he is back. And that's the way it was going to go. When Bronson Reed tore his bicep and they had to do an audible, they decided, and listen, they have audibles prepared every week. I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but they have audibles every week. Listen, if something were to happen, especially if it's a 3-way or a 4-way match, okay, this person is the next in line to win. All right. If something happens, Bronson Reed, Jay, you get the victory. It's not, you know, like, oh, what do we do? And then somebody gets in the referee's ear. Give it to Jay. Give it to Jay. No, they have a backup plan. And the backup plan was for Jay to win. Obviously, there was never any intention on Jey Uso to be in the Elimination Chamber. So they did the injury angle on SmackDown, which led to, you know, Logan Paul going in. So Logan Paul was playing Bronson Reed in that match. So when people, because I saw a lot of people angry that Logan Paul got all these victories at the Chamber. And I'm like, WWE did not change their plan. Bronson Reed would have done the very same thing. It was just that now with Logan Paul in there, he would have gotten the victories. You know, you saw the LA Knight. I saw the botch. I mean, you know, you feel bad for the guy. You know, ropes get slippery. There's sweat. So, you know, I'm not going to make fun of LA Knight for that. But you see how Logan Paul got some of the victories. You know, you put a tsunami or two in there instead, and now the victories make a little bit more sense. It's just with Logan Paul, they had to make him more of like a chicken shit opportunist. You know, Cody Rhodes, you know, was going to get the victory, you know, and Logan Paul throws him out of the way so he could get the victory on Trick Williams, which was stupid. Cody Rhodes was about to pin Trick Williams. And in storyline, why would you throw that person out of the way so you could steal the victory? I get it, because he's an egotistical prick, Logan Paul does. But you're giving extra seconds for Trick Williams to regain his composure in storyline and then kick out. So Logan Paul, I understood why he was there. I kind of thought it would have come down to Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes, because one thing, if you remember my predictions last week, what was the one thing I had a problem with? Everybody was a babyface. Jey Uso originally won the match. When we did predictions, my problem was everybody was a fucking babyface. So it came down to who does Cody Rhodes face in the final two? And we came down to either Randy Orton or Jey Uso. Which is the lesser of the two evils? And then obviously they did what they did on SmackDown, and it led to Logan Paul replacing Jey Uso. And then obviously we see Seth Rollins' return. No one could have envisioned, no pun intended, that Seth Rollins absolutely would have made a return at Elimination Chamber. The way WWE has been over milking things for a good 2 years now, there was no fucking guarantee. None whatsoever. I don't care what they did on Friday with the fake fucking plant or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, going into it, there just was not really discussed. But it came down to Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, and Drew McIntyre gets involved. And then you realize that, Jacob Fatu, I guess there was a pork truck outside. Somebody was selling, shish kebabs. There was a shish kebab truck. And then you realize, no one is going out there to try to neutralize Drew McIntyre. And I'm like, this is getting tiresome that somebody comes out there and causes interference. You go back to Survivor Series, Masked Man. You go to Elimination Chamber, Drew McIntyre. You go to Elimination Chamber, Seth Rollins. You think of last year, it's like, what's the sense of having the Elimination Chamber when, other than running into plexiglass, which always sounds nice, trust me, everyone out there, go to Home Depot and buy a thin piece of plexiglass and hit your relative with it. Just hit them in the back. Don't hit them in the head. And it makes a very nice, loud sound, and it doesn't hurt at all. You'd be like, wow, this is cool. Maybe I'll hit myself. This is plexiglass and, makes nice noise. After a while, it's kind of tiresome. Jumping off the top of the pod, ooh, like the Elimination Chamber. Changes lives. You're never the same. And now you're realizing, the pod always, the chamber always has to open so somebody could exit, and somehow we'll get somebody in there to cause interference. And I'm tired of that. Obviously Randy Orton, RKO and Drew, and RKO and Cody gets the win. Every man for himself. But then after the fucking event is over, Nick Aldis in the press conference, Cody Rhodes is getting a championship match on SmackDown Friday because of what happened with Drew McIntyre. And I'm like, what the fuck is the sense of the Elimination Chamber? He lost, life sucks, and he's going to get a title match anyway. And it's like, come on, man. I know it's not his fault. It's storyline and everything. But it's it loses the luster of what the chamber always was. It's a prop now. It's just a prop with very cool flashing lights, with, that music and anticipating, who's going to be next in the randomness of it. And that overview the camera. Boing. Oh my God. It's lost its luster. You're obviously not going to get rid of Elimination Chamber. It's a mainstay. And it kind of feels that TKO absolutely would not ditch the chamber. The structure is intimidating. The lights, the anticipation, the unknown, just the unexpected, that's much better than WrestlePalooza. So Elimination Chamber ain't going nowhere. But man, this fucking cheap, creative way out. You're like, all right, how do we get to this? Oh, well, we'll have this person lose, but don't worry. We'll figure out a way. He'll get a title match anyway. Rhea Ripley loses the tag team titles. Why is she fighting a tag team title match the day before the Elimination Chamber? It's like, Oh, I get it. She loses the tag titles so she could go on to WrestleMania and fight Jade. And now because Jade's on SmackDown, I don't want to leave you, but I have the championship match and I dedicate this to you. I love you. I'm going to miss the hugs and I will be back. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why? Like, why even? So I'm kind of tired of these cheap, creative way outs. Like, put it this way. What's the sense of building something for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks where you change shit at the last minute anyway? And it's no longer anything could happen in the WWE. We've heard that for 30 years. I remember Vince, anything could happen. It's no longer anything could happen. We could change it whenever the fuck we feel like it. So, I thought Elimination Chamber was okay. I'm tired of putting money in ESPN's pocket. I don't think spending money on that, spending money on Netflix, and spending money on this and spending money on that. I think right now, WWE's only worth $9.99 a month. But unfortunately, if we truly want to watch, these big events, you have to pay accordingly or, buy it off of someone else's membership or login or something or, find a hack site. I thought Elimination Chamber was okay, but, there's so much that's going to change. And I'll lead to this and then I'll mention the Vince McMahon thing. Because I got a little teaser for everybody out there. This was sent in right before we went live, so I noticed it. This was from Peter. Thoughts on Drew McIntyre ripping the idea his WrestleMania match may be a 3-way or a 4-way? My answer to that is Bianca Belair. It's Bianca Belair. Last year, Bianca Belair won the Elimination Chamber. Suddenly, it turned into a 3-way. What's the sense of winning the Chamber? What's the sense of winning the Chamber if they're going to change the match anyway? And listen, it gave us one of the greatest women's 3-way matches in history. Absolutely gave us a tremendous match. But what's the sense of winning the Chamber and getting the opportunity when someone else could just show up and say a few nasty words or intimidating words? You ducking me. You avoiding me. You pussy. You sissy. You ducking me. Don't say that. So Drew McIntyre saying in an interview, is this a creative thing? It's just to try to make it feel that Drew is legitimately frustrated. Even CM Punk and Roman Reigns recently really trashing Drew McIntyre. And I pointed out last week when they were given the card for Elimination Chamber, Michael Cole couldn't even say the words Drew McIntyre. Remember? The winner of the Elimination Chamber goes on to face the champion at WrestleMania. Go back and watch last week's Raw when Michael Cole was running down the card. It was almost like sacrilegious to say the words Drew McIntyre. I picked up on that last Monday. And, Drew McIntyre being a little annoyed at being looked at secondary, they're trying to, again, WWE's booking for unreal. They want you to think, if you think there's any controversy or if anybody's being slight, look at even the Chelsea Green stuff. Look at the Chelsea Green stuff. All right. Michael Hayes goes on Undertaker's podcast. Michael Hayes now says, Netflix edited what I said. That's my impersonation of him. But no, they didn't. No, they didn't. This is a WWE thing. You think Netflix follows all the storylines? Think Netflix follows the creative things like, hey, I got an idea. Let's get WWE on the phone and say, let's trim down what this guy, this blonde-haired old man said about this woman, and it'll seem like he's being a dick. Yeah, the fans will get behind that because they know the whole history of... Get the fuck out of here. And Chelsea Green watched the original Unreal before it ever came out. You think WWE is going to fucking put something out there and fucking really hurt the feelings of Chelsea Green? Just think about that for a minute. If we give her a push, then, it'll dissipate because everybody knows that the only reason why she's getting the push because the company's giving her a push. What the fuck are you talking about? That's what this is supposed to be. Like, they're booking for Unreal. I'm not finding any fault in Chelsea Green or anyone else that is part of WWE Unreal. Every single one of them are entertainers. Every single one of them are entertainers. I've said it recently. I think what they're doing with Chelsea Green right now is perfectly fine because you're focused on other people right now. If you force a different route for Chelsea Green, she turns into LA Knight. Yeah, she turns into LA Knight. Chelsea Green right now, fan favorite, feels she's being shortchanged a little bit. That's the story. We'll give you a little bit. We're just not going to give it all. And the fans will think that management's holding you back. And this way, when we let the Jets go, the fans feel like they were responsible for it. It's not hard to figure it out. Chelsea Green is one of the most over people in that company, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And they're just going to turn around and say, no, we're not going to push you like that. There's always somebody. There's always somebody in that position. But, to have the audacity to have Undertaker sit with Michael Hayes, and then Michael Hayes like, Netflix edited all the compliments I said. The fuck out of here. Netflix did that. If that was true, where's the disclaimer a month ago? How come you didn't tell Chelsea Green that 2 months ago? So your fucking feelings weren't devastated in WWE. No, you're saying on an Undertaker podcast because everything now is being booked for Unreal. I'm telling you guys, WWE Unreal was WWE's way of trying to make WWE feel more real outside every week. You saw early couple of years ago, early teasers. Oh my God, fans had their phones out and they recorded Kevin Owens punching out Cody Rhodes by a production truck. Look at this. We weren't supposed to see that. Oh my God. That was not for TV. And then WWE slick, when they showed highlights for everybody what happened, they showed cell phone footage. Beautiful. Beautiful. Trying to make everything feel real. So we pulled back the curtain. So now the curtain's pulled back a little bit, and like they're trying to make WWE Unreal, not necessarily unreal, but this is real. My head's going to fucking explode. It's affecting the TV, just like what Chris just said in the chat. It's affecting the TV on a weekly basis. It's affecting interviews. It's affecting appearances. It's affecting even individual wrestlers. Because sometimes you don't know what to say in an interview. CM Punk has done tremendous press for the last couple of weeks. But I remember the night after he had the confrontation with Roman Reigns on Raw, which was tremendous. Pair of pipe bombs, sort of. And he's doing an interview the next day. And the fucking female host is like, do you really hate Roman Reigns? No, I just like to get under people's skin. Like, really? It's affecting everything weekly. And listen, people are buying into it. People are buying into it. Look at what Peter wrote. With all due respect. I appreciate what you said, Peter, because it helps me explain it a little bit more. Drew McIntyre's match might be a 3-way, a 4-way. It might be a 6-pack challenge. You may end up getting Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Jacob Fatu, Sami Zayn, and maybe even somebody else. We don't know. Could be a 3-way, a 4-way, a 5-way. And Drew McIntyre will complain, will bitch. What's the sense of the chamber? What's the sense of this? Why is this? I'm not treated, and then if he loses, but is not the one pinned, even more reason for him to bitch and complain. But a lot of people forget is Drew McIntyre is an entertainer. Drew McIntyre has masterclassed this. Drew McIntyre drives away in the parking lot. Drew McIntyre walks off a busted open. Says, Dave LaGreca, you look like a freak. Fuck you. And fuck the internet as well. You know, everybody, a lot of people buy into that. Like, oh my God, it's part work, part shoot. Drew McIntyre is the consummate employee. Even when some asshole took a picture of him standing side by side with CM Punk before a Monday Night Raw. You know, Drew McIntyre is like, look, you know, I have to work with this guy. I can't stand him, but I have to work with him. You know, what am I going to do? You know, lose my job? No. You know, he made the best of it. The guy is the quintessential consummate professional entertainer, knows exactly what the fuck he's doing. LA Knight complaining. LA Knight knows his time's not now. Eat some Slim Jims. Here's a couple of million. Be happy. LA Knight's not walking in every week, you know, complaining. You know, they know exactly what's going on. Everybody knows exactly who's on the food chain right now. And the idea is make everybody believe that it's real. Remember what I said when TKO first bought WWE? When Kev, God rest his soul, was still with us. And someone who worked for WWE said to Kev and I that they had this meeting that as long as there's one fan around, you walk as if the cameras are recording. And that's why you hear Drew McIntyre stormed out of here. This person, this person visibly upset at ringside when CM Punk's music hit. This and that, blah, 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 blah. You know, as long as there's one person around, you act like the cameras are recording. And that's why you see what you're seeing. And that's why you get what you get. And listen, thank God they're doing that to an extent, but now it's on overload. Now they're dependent on it. And this fucking WWE Unreal thing, people are going to look back on it and they're going to realize how much damage WWE Unreal gave. Listen, they control the narrative. I told you, they record segments months later to try to make something look a little bit extra. You think, oh, fuck, 3 months ago we recorded this. Fuck, we can't. No, it's easy. Jay, you know, you got your gear from Monday Night Raw in March. Okay, you got to put it on. You know, we're going to record something. You got to fill in this blank to get from here to here. No problem, boss. Oos. Hey, Oos, come here. You know, this is what they do. They're an entertainment company. They can control it any way they want. So, thank you for that, Peter. We'll talk war in a moment. Thank you, Synapse. I'll mention my war in a minute. Shout out to Tom Pelkey. Thank you for the WWE sub, the $9.99. Much appreciated, my friend. I thank you. And keep your support coming, man. All of you out there. Todd is, he's supported us on multiple platforms there, and he's been a long, long time DTKC fan. Friend. I hate saying fan. No one's fans here. We're just family. So thank you, Todd. I really appreciate that. Lost but found. Thank you for that. Do I see Truth and Danhausen tag team coming? You know, you think of Black and White. I think of Booker T and Goldust. We have had mixed tag teams over the years. And I don't want to look at something that's black and white. But I think the dynamic of R-Truth, especially with his music career, and Danhausen, I think that would turn out to be comedy gold. And I have a feeling people are going to insist that those two guys team up. And what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Danhausen, listen, I saw one thing I kept seeing people write this weekend is Danhausen is an independent wrestler. He's an indie guy who got some AEW time. Now he's getting some WWE time. Danhausen is not this amazing competitor in the ring. I don't even know if Danhausen could put a 3-star match out there. But he puts out 5-star entertainment. Danhausen is a different variation of why R-Truth was rehired from WWE. Because fans, not only us, but wrestlers in wrestling, they absolutely were devastated R-Truth got released. That motherfucker's been there for decades. You know, everybody at some point, it's time to move on. But there was this insane outcry for R-Truth to be rehired. And it's not about a money thing, obviously, but what it was that in a world with so much controversy and so much difficulty and so much hate and everything else going on and problems in the world here and abroad, you know, you go to wrestling, like a lot of people got annoyed at what Sami Zayn said about being an escape. And, you know, rightfully so to an extent. But the thing is that R-Truth, his job was to put smiles on people's faces, to lift up people's days. And yes, that's an expensive way to do it, but you're an expensive company. It's like having a movie produced and the plot is ridiculous. Like there's no like real like deep, you know, plot. It's a kind of a movie that some people were at McDonald's just sitting down eating burgers like, dude, you know, what if we did this? Dude, I got a perfect idea. Holy shit, dude, let's turn it into a movie. And you fucking make tens of millions of dollars off it. You have to pay big time money to actors. And you're like, why are we spending this kind of money on a movie like this? But everybody wants to see it because everybody just feels good and enjoys it. You don't have to have 5-star matches. You don't have to have, and R-Truth was an example of somebody that just brightened people's days up. To me, that's what Danhausen's role will be. I think Danhausen's role will be to be like for the kids to an extent, but also the interaction with, you know, R-Truth and others, so the adults get into it as well. And the wrestlers like him. There's not many people that don't like Danhausen. So, you know, when you see my thumbnail, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I fucking hated the debut. And fans booing in Chicago, listen, you know, I thought WWE was very cute on their social media account when they posted his debut and they cut the video off as soon as the fucking cameras went black. You know, because they tried to, you know, diminish the boos. But there's too much fan footage out there and you hear the fucking boos. And listen, there's always going to be goofs on social media. Just the whack jobs that are just deranged. And like, oh, the fans in Chicago, we were all booing because, you know, he disappeared and fuck out of here. You know, like, he still ain't going to blow you. That's the little phrase that me and my friends used to say 10, 20 years ago. You want to, you try to, you know, like try to make, you know, something seem a certain way, like that person's still not going to, you know, pay attention to you. You know, just be honest of what it is. I'm not blaming Danhausen at all. It's WWE creative. And like I said, even on Wednesday Night Dynamite this past week, anything other than Jericho would have been a massive disappointment. And not only do you not give Jericho, but you position the crate where you know the back of the crate is open and it's being covered by, you know, by black, you know, like layers of curtains. So it looks like there was 7-8 women inside the crate. You're adding all this smoke and special effects, and it's like, oh, come on, man. That's gobbledygooker shit. You know, anything would have been crapped on unless it was Jericho. And listen, you know, Jericho wasn't going to help WWE in any way. You know, Jericho wasn't going to make people realize, hey, I'm in California. You're like, look, I'm on the beach in Los Angeles. You know, I'm nowhere near there. You know, like nobody was going to appease that situation. You know why? Because there were a lot of people that tuned in because they thought Jericho was going to be there. I don't know how many people bought tickets because of that. It could have been one of the deciding factors. But there's a reason why Danhausen was the odds-on favorite. We talked about it on Wednesday. Didn't just come out of nowhere. You know, I did find it funny where, you know, like some wrestling wannabe journalists, they said, my sources tell me that WWE kept Danhausen far away from Chicago so he wouldn't be seen. And I guarantee all of you out there, if I would have opened this show put a picture of Danhausen on the screen without makeup and said, "Who that?" I guarantee you 99% of you out there would not know who he is. Especially if I posted a picture of him wearing a baseball cap so you couldn't see the Danhausen hair, the Buster Brown hair. If I would have shown him without makeup wearing a baseball cap, 99% of you out there would have had no idea who it was. And, you supposed to just tell me that they kept away from you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I do see that. I definitely see that Lost but Found. And I think it'll be extremely entertaining. I really do. So, all right. We'll get back to super shout-outs in a moment. We'll get into your questions, and then we'll jet out of here. How long have we gone so far? We've gone an hour and 10. So, we still have about 50 minutes. Check this out. I'll be very, very, very quick about this. Remember last week we showed the Vince McMahon accident footage? Okay. I did this for our Patreon family for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it's a very small, tight-knit community. Number two, everybody there, for the most part, has been there for a very long time. And number three, they financially help what I do big time, along with our channel members here. And I'm working on for channel members too. But what happened was about 3 months ago, I put a FOIA request in for the Vince McMahon accident. I don't do it much. I stopped being a news reporter, quote unquote, in 2006. It's been 20 years. But 3 months ago, because I'm licensed in Connecticut to sell insurance, I wanted to see the full accident because I was curious why he was not arrested. Okay. I was curious why Vince McMahon was not arrested. So I put in a FOIA request 3 months ago. They asked if I was media news. I said no. I wrote my corporation name, DDT Entertainment LLC, but I also put in the notes, I explained who I was and that, not only have I been covering wrestling since the 90s, but I'm a licensed insurance agent since 1998. And I said that I'm very fascinated about the accident because it's an accident that also involved somebody in wrestling. So about 10 days ago, I got the video that we streamed last Sunday. And it was censored and it was heavily edited. But I got it. When I got it 10 days ago, I put a second request in. And I said, is there any way I could get the entire file? I said, because there's a lot missing here. And our Patreon family, who was live this past Thursday, I shared my screen. They saw everything. I get an email from a young lady from the Connecticut Department of Transportation in a legal affairs division. And she's like, could you give me a call? And I gave her a call. This was about 6 days ago. And, she wanted me to explain a little bit more what I was asking for and why. So long story short, we had a pleasant 5-minute conversation. And I said, listen, I know I'm smart enough not to reveal personal information. I said, but I would love to get the entire file of the accident because there's elements of it. Being an insurance agent, I'm very intrigued by what was done and what wasn't done in the accident. I didn't want to say to her point blank, why did the cops not arrest Vince? But there was aspects of the accident. See, because I know here in New York, I have a customer who just got pulled over doing 105 miles an hour on the Long Island Expressway and got arrested for it. He's 80 years old. He was doing 105 in the Long Island Expressway, which is 65, and he got arrested. And, when you go that fast, let alone have a car accident on top of it, which, you could have killed someone. I was very confused why Vince was not arrested, detained, something. So I said, listen, there's aspects of the accident, the speed limit was 65. I verified that. I said, normally somebody who goes 40, 45 miles over the limit, it's handled differently. I said, I would love to see the extra details. So she's like, all right, let me see what I could do. And sure enough, the day before Patreon, which I do every Thursday night, I get emailed to me 9 files. Nine files. And it's this young lady, and she's like, I have good news. I was able to get you the entire file, but I need you to please, if you put any of this information out there, please do not put out any personal information about anybody involved in the accident. She said license plate numbers are okay, but do not put out personal information. And she also told me, forget what it was. She said it would be respectful not to show the drivers of the other vehicles involved. And I said, absolutely. I said, I know exactly what to do, what not to do. I said, you have my word, and I thank you so much for it. So on Thursday night, we opened up these 9 files in real time. And we were fascinated by what we saw. So number one, there was a car that was involved in the accident that Vince did not hit, but I think a wheel flew off of Vince's car and hit another car, and the guy was wearing a WWE shirt. I have not identified who this guy is yet, but I'm going to do a Google reverse image search to see who this person is. But a random guy got hit in this accident, and he had a WWE shirt on. Number two, when you watch the entire video, you see how the cops really go out of their way to treat Vince with kid gloves, because it's not even remotely discussed that he should be arrested or detained. The words don't even come out of their mouths. And there's a shitload that was not seen. It was very interesting that the woman that he hit from behind, she wanted to meet him. And the cop's like, nah, that's not going to happen. But also there was a female friend that showed up, a female friend of Vince. And this we can show because a few other people out there got part of this as well. But also there's a lot more with Vince that has not been online, and it's uncensored. And I'm going to show you all 2 very quick clips now, just so you could see that I am not kidding what I say. And again, everybody who was live on Patreon Thursday saw the entire, it was about an hour and a half worth of footage. Different cops involved, the witness, there was one point where, and next week I'll put a video together. It's just, I haven't edited anything yet, but next week I'll put a video together and I will blur out the woman's face. But you will see a point where the woman who got hit, she was a very nice lady, but she was upset that he was going over 100 miles an hour and hit her and could have obviously caused serious injury. And the cop was kind of making excuses for Vince. Every single person who watched it was like, wow. Every time this woman was like, why was he going so fast? Why did he do this? And the cop was like, well, missed, he lost control, and he was driving too fast. And it was just like, wow, these cops are like really making excuses for Vince. It was pretty fucked up. But I'll show you 2 very quick clips. Here's a little bit of Vince, uncensored. Hold on. Okay. Just let me know in the chat if you could hear this.
Just stay in the car. Do you need an ambulance?
No, I don't.
All right. Why were you driving over 100 miles an hour?
It's my granddaughter's birthday. I got to get this the next exit.
Right. Did you see me trying to catch up to you behind you?
I didn't see that. I saw lights, but it didn't look normal.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to you, and you keep taking off.
Oh, no. I'm not trying to outrun you.
I know. I understand that, but that's why I was very confused. All right? Because it wasn't like you were running. It was just like you almost hit, I think, 115 miles an hour. All right? And then you just hit someone because you weren't paying attention. Were you looking at your phone?
No, trying to drive. No, I'm not looking at my phone.
The person was right in front of you. There's got to be a reason you hit him.
No. I haven't been driving my car in God knows how long.
All right. It was right in front of you. You went straight at it at 100 miles an hour. I I'm just making sure you're not having a medical condition or anything.
I don't think
Do you need an ambulance?
No, fuck, I don't think so.
All right. Just your registration. Is your license in here?
No, it's in my pocket.
All right.
Stupid fucking fool. I haven't driven this car in quite some time.
It's fast, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, too fucking fast.
All right, I have to stop it there because also when we were live, we were able to see Vince McMahon's driver's license, all his information, his license number, his address, everything. Only thing I will tell you right now is, and I will blur out next week everything except for one thing, Vince McMahon's photo on his driver's license. You remember when Donald Trump shaved his head? All right, Vince, not too long after that, had that very, very, very short hair. That's when this photo was taken. This photo has got to be almost 20 years old. It's a very old photo of Vince. It was kind of amazing because usually with motor vehicles, they don't let you keep a very old picture on your driver's license. His driver's license did recently renew, but we got the whole raw file. But I wanted to show you, Vince had a lady friend pick him up, and honestly, I'm not going to edit her out because her face has been posted online already. So, I'm not going to edit it, but you will see her for a split second. And, she obviously Vince called her while he was stopped on the highway. But you'll see this lady friend, and we got to try to figure out who this lady friend is. So let me just show you this footage. All right, here.
Who's this now? What's going on?
Here to pick up Mr. McMahon, if this is the...
Yeah, you can get off the next exit.
Okay.
And his assistant's up ahead.
Where is he?
He's up ahead of that. But you can't stop there. We don't have enough people to protect you guys up there.
All right. Would you mind if I just walked up there, though?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't want you to get hit.
Okay.
All right. So, I just, we'll find out. But like I said, it's an hour and a half long. There's a lot more footage. There's one point where Vince is shaking hands with everyone. The guy with the WWE shirt fascinates me because nobody knows who he is. And it wasn't even asked in the video. I don't recall the cops asking him if he knew Vince. But one of the cops did tell the other driver that, because she said, is he the one that owns WWE? And he said, I think he sold part of it or he doesn't own it anymore. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But I just wanted to give you a little teaser. Next week, I'll put a nice little edited, file together. But we have the whole 90 minutes of footage. It's pretty interesting stuff. So very interesting. Very interesting. But I will tell you, it really says something fascinating about even law enforcement. Wasn't even a question. I mean, the cop just said he was doing 115 at some points. You don't detain him. You don't put him in handcuffs. You don't even threaten arrest. It was almost like they were inconveniencing Vince. Vince is sitting in the back of an Escalade, waiting for everything to be done. And, listen, we're going to have to give you this ticket and you're going to have to go to court. And it was like, man, billionaires, even Vince in Connecticut being treated preferentially. The guy was going 50 over. That is an arrest for anyone else. And that motherfucker, it wasn't even an issue. The thing that annoyed us the most was in the beginning when the cop seemed like he was making excuses for Vince hitting that woman. So There was a witness too. There was a witness there that another female, which is another story in itself, but we'll share a nice amount of it next week. So, all right. Before we get into more questions, I do want to very quickly get into this. Very quickly, this controversy. All right. Because it got a shitload of attention. I got involved with it, and I want to just mention it briefly too. Obviously, there was big meet and greet over the weekend for Elimination Chamber. And there is one young lady that threw a lot of shade over Femi's way. And, you know, what really pisses me off, I'll get back to that photo in a minute. I want to open up with a statement. What pisses me off about social media more than anything, and this has been going on for 20 years, is only in social media you could be a snarky asshole. A snarky asshole. And yet, because you can't handle people being snarky back at you, and you deactivate your account because you can't handle the criticism, that suddenly you are a victim. Only on social media, you could be a cunt. You could be an asshole. You could be a dick. And because you can't handle it back and you deactivate, suddenly you're a victim. We could be better. You should do better. Listen, with all due respect, you see what I just showed you? This is Ricochet calling this woman a loser. All right? Then you had someone half hour later calling this woman a victim because everybody was criticizing her to the point where she deactivated her X account, and Dustin Rhodes likes that. She's a victim. Listen, I want to say this perfectly clear. In no way, shape, or form was I trying to run this woman off of X. And almost everybody that I have talked to was not trying to get this woman so upset to chase her off of X. The thing is that if you're going to be an asshole, then you better be able to take it too. You know, that's something that I have learned over the years. I've been doing this since 1998. I have been called a racist. I've been called a drug guy. I've been called this, that, money mark, and everything else. I've been called everything in a book. And early on, it would bother me. And then, you know, I learned thick skin thanks to the Mass Maniac in the beginning. And I realized that if I'm going to give it, I better be able to take it. Even other podcasters out there, if you're going to give it, you better be able to take it back. And the problem is on social media, there's a lot of people like that young lady that is very quick to throw shade. But when the shade comes back, they can't handle it. And then they deactivate. And no, she did not delete her Twitter. I fucking hate Ringside News and all these lowlifes that turn around and anytime somebody takes their account offline, they deleted it. No, it's not delete. It's called deactivate. You could reactivate your account 5 fucking minutes later. There's a big difference between deleting an account and deactivating an account. They always use the word delete, and it's not deleting. But for those out there that don't know the story, this one woman, she calls herself the pom-pom girl. And listen, we all know that a lot of podcasters out there want to be the center of attention as well. People go to autograph signings. They want to be the center of attention as well. All right, there's people out there like Pom Pom Girl who has to have a gimmick about themselves also. They want to feel like they're a character too. You see that in the podcast world. You see it in regular fandomhood, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. All right, but when things don't go your way and the story is not about you, it's about the person you're meeting, that's where it falls off the rails. And that's why I've brought this up many times in the past. You see, even when there's media scrums, you go watch a media scrum from a political world. All right, you see like Trump answering questions, or you see a press conference after a baseball game or a football game. All right. When someone asks a question from the media, they'll say John Smith, Sporting News, Amy Smith, CNN. They'll identify who they are and where they're from. All right, but when you see it being recapped online, like the Daily News covers a press conference after a baseball game, Aaron Boone discusses the Yankees' loss. Someone will ask him, like, what do you think about the relief pitching in this game? Like, usually what a newspaper article will say is, Aaron Boone comments about the pitching, which led to the loss. But what they don't do is they don't have to put every reporter's name in lights. And in wrestling, that is almost a must among some people. That when you see coverage of a media scrum or something like that, like everybody who asks a question, their name must be in lights when people recap it, because they have to be part of the story as well. And successful journalists and the most popular and most prominent journalists, they don't make the story about themselves. But in wrestling, a lot of people, their name has to be mentioned. And you see people like this, there's got to be a gimmick. She shows up at autograph signings with pom-poms. And she wants the wrestlers to take a picture holding the pom-poms. All right, fine, whatever. Some wrestlers, I'm sure, will do it. And now you'll understand why we opened up with the Randy Orton clip. Obafemi was just mingling with fans, did not want to do anything character-wise. She asked Obafemi, could you hold the pom-poms? And I could take a picture, because she's pom-pom girl. She's got to get the wrestlers to do. Some wrestlers will do it. Some wrestlers will not. So when it came to Obafemi, she goes on X and she writes, my first and last picture with Obafemi. Very disappointing meet and greet. By the way, guys, it's not just me. He won't do any special poses with fans. Hashtag Elimination Chamber, hashtag WWE, hashtag WWE Chamber. This is a woman who wanted to let everybody know that Obafemi was being a dick. First and last time I have a meet and greet with Obafemi, because he wouldn't hold my fucking pom-poms. So obviously she gets it back. Even to the point where wrestlers, and I show you Ricochet, called her a loser. So what I did was I fixed the photo for her. I actually made my own photo, and I had Obafemi put her in a headlock, and I changed her Damian Priest shirt to a shirt that says entitled. And when I went to put her on a wall and say, is this what you wanted? Does this make you happy? She restricted the responses. You couldn't even respond back because she couldn't handle the criticism. So what ended up happening, you had people like Ricochet and others that were retweeting what she wrote, and they would give their 2 cents there. She deactivated her X account. Now suddenly she's a victim. Guys, do you remember what happened with Hannah Kimura? She was chased off the net. And trust me, 1 or 2 wrestlers brought up Hannah Kimura in this. Let that sink in for a minute. All right. Again, nobody tried to chase this woman off of X. She wanted to tell the world that Obafemi would not do. She criticized Obafemi. He did nothing wrong, because this is pom-pom girl. She spent big money. He's got to hold the pom-poms. That's what you call entitled. Entitled. If you don't like being criticized, then don't do things like that in the first place. See, this is the problem with social media, and it's deadly. It's deadly. Everybody out there wants to be famous, wants to be a celebrity. When we started podcasting in the early 2000s, even in the mid 2000s, when I had Joey on recently, shout out to Joey. Back then, we had wrestlers on television coming on, and even in our chat rooms, and they would tune in every week. We brought up names. People would call in once in a while. We have names fucking bringing the shows to Japan and everything else. And we were like fascinated by it. Joey, Kevin, God rest his soul, Smoked Out, Black Moses. You know, we were all like, why? And one of the reasons being is because back then there was probably like 15 shows. It's like 15 shows. Now there's 15,000 shows. When I do the history show, I brought this up many times before. When I do the history show and I look up like, this is the anniversary that Bray Wyatt challenged John Cena for WrestleMania. And you do a Google search and there'll be 500 responses. And 495 of them will be fucking fans on TikTok, on X, or Twitter at the time, on whatever. And, hey, what's up? It's your boy. You know, giving my comments on The Fiend challenging John Cena. Like, everybody's got to have a reaction. You look at the reveal with Danhausen. You have these people, the podcast, like, ooh, let me show everyone on X my live reaction. You know, fine. Everybody wants to be a character. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. Just being a fan for some people is not enough. So Pom Pom Girl is off of X. She's probably crying her eyes out. She's probably unhinged, probably feels depressed. And that is fucked up. And it's a shame. And it shouldn't have happened. But that is a lesson to be learned by a lot of people out there that no, the autograph signings are not about you. It's about the person. And if the person does not want to go along with what you said, fine, that's it. You be respectful, say thank you. You see a wrestler in an airport. Hey, can I take a picture with you? Can I get your autograph? No, I'm with my family. Okay, I totally understand it. You know, just thank you for everything you do. You entertain me. And you know what? Sometimes when you have that reaction back, you know what they'll say? Come here. Come here. And they'll do it anyway. All right? That's why, once again, Randy Orton wins the Elimination Chamber, is walking around ringside, and somebody asks Randy, could you put on the Chelsea Green hat? Can we take a picture of you? And Randy's like, sure. And here's the footage. Now, if Randy didn't put the hat on, you go on X and say, you know, Randy, wow, he just won the chamber. My little kid was there. And all I wanted was for him to put on the Chelsea Green hat. And he refused. Like, no. You know, they asked him. He saw that, you know, the vibe was there. He was fine with it. Took the picture, had some fun with it. Gave that little kid a memory, and that's it. You know why? Because that moment wasn't about the little kid. It wasn't like, oh, let me post on X, you know. No, this was about having a moment between the wrestler and the fan. And that's why Randy put the hat on. Obafemi didn't want to put the pom-poms on. And first and last time meeting Obafemi. And I just wanted to share that because only on social media can you be an asshole like that. And because people give it back to you, suddenly you're a victim because you can't handle it. No, sorry, no sympathy. No sympathy. Because everybody wants to be the attention until the attention is not the attention that they wanted. Then suddenly I'm a victim. I'm just a fan. You know, I'm just a girl with pom-poms, and it just makes me happy, and it's for my mental health. That's what people will do. Now, you know what'll happen? She'll probably say, or her friends or those sticking up for her will say she got death threats. Death threats. That's the next thing, because everybody uses the death threat thing. You know, my answer to people, especially in wrestling, who claim to get death threats, I always say this same thing. If you called the cops or you called the feds, then I will acknowledge it and have sympathy for it and say that's fucked up every single time. But when you go on X, instead of going on the FBI's website, something is wrong here. Even people in the podcasting world over the years, you know, people getting death threats against someone's kids, doxing people's families. and they go on X all night long, complain, and they don't go to the cops. They don't go to what is this, mafia? If you're part of the mafia, that's different. Hey, we don't go to the fucking cops. Nah. We fucking take care of business in-house. These are not people that are calling the Godfather on the corner. When you go to X instead of going to law enforcement, and don't say, well, I hate law enforcement. No, fuck that. You get death threats and you do nothing about it except for ask for sympathy on social media or in an interview, then you get none from me. That's one thing I've watched for decades that baffles the fuck out of me. Because early 23 years ago, Kev and I on the shows, we would get some really fucked up shit to the point where I was getting death threats. And guess what? I called the cops. And 2 times they caught the person. And I had the opportunity of having that person arrested. And I turned around and I said, listen, I'm not going to press charges, but I want that person to know that I know about it and I want an apology. And both times they caught him in an internet cafe. Internet cafes 20 years ago was a very popular thing to do. And people thought because they were in an internet cafe and it was a public IP that it would not trace back to them. They thought it was blocked. But what they didn't realize is that there's cameras inside the establishment. So when you go report it to the cops and they hire an investigator and the investigator looks back and traces the IP back to an internet cafe and then goes to the internet cafe and says, listen, on this day at this time, this person was getting death threats and, the same person was posting CP on their Facebook page. Could you give us, what information? And that's how it happened. You don't go to law enforcement, you get no sympathy from me. So, all right. Let's get into a few other questions. Then we'll head over to the room and then we'll wrap this up. We still got about 20 minutes. I want to shout out Nir. Nir lives in the country of Israel. And obviously with all the shit going on right now with Iran and everything, it's insane what's going down. A couple of things I'll say about what's going on overseas, and shout out to Nir. He's safe. His family is safe. I look back at Gigi Dolan, Priscilla Kelly going to Israel for a wrestling event. And she got chased off of X as well. She deactivated her account for a little while. And, listen, was she a little bit clueless about what's going on over there? Sure. The promoter didn't help saying that she had no idea because she's got an agent. And the agent should have turned around. And what baffled me about Priscilla Kelly, and I'm a huge fan of hers, and I felt that it's a shame that she got chased off of the net and had to cancel the booking in Israel. And I'll get to my point in a minute, is that, she's on the internet every single day. And for the last 2-3 years, you don't know nothing of what's going on in Israel and Palestine and Iran and Iraq. And wherever, you have no idea whatsoever. You just go on X, look, everybody, I'm going to Israel. Like it's Disney World. And obviously she got it handed to her. My only issue is that the fans in Israel, they're not the government. And if they just want to go to a wrestling event, I don't understand why a wrestler would be canceled off of online for going to Israel. It's just like I used the example in Minnesota. You heard about all that fraud with Somalis. Does that mean that you take away benefits from every Somali there? No, you penalize the Somalis who committed crimes, and you don't take it out on every Somali. After 9/11, you don't take it out on every single person that looks like a fucking terrorist. That's what people were worried. A lot of you remember the Asif story, my friend Asif. After 9/11, we were playing cards in my house one day, and he started crying because he had a bodega. And, people would come in and they would think he was fucking related to, one of the terrorists there. He looked like the fucking twin brother of one of them. And he's like, I have I don't know anybody that's, terrorist, but you would see someone and judge them a certain way. So, to see what's going on with Nir, if you live in Palestine, you live in Israel, wherever you live, you just want to enjoy life. You just want to, take care of yourself and your family. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, even in Iran. You see the people in Iran, there's a lot of people that just want, freedom, just don't want to have what was happening, for decades. And, this is why when you see the bombings and see everything like that, it's rough, man. War is never pretty. It's never pretty. But, I'm glad you're safe. And everybody who's in that neck of the world, my thoughts are with you all. Especially you're not involved with any governments or anything like that. But Synapse wanted my thoughts on what's going on with Iran. Do I think the replacement will be just as bad, or will they reform the government? I don't live in that neck of the woods. All I will say is that there's a lot of intel that will never be made public to all of us. So we don't know what they were doing. We don't know what was going on with nuclear weapons. I don't like ever that, a government is taken out by another government, but let me put it this way. Here's Iran's opportunity to run the country the way that they claim they wanted to run it, but were in absolute fear because of the military and the government and everybody who was in charge. So now you have an opportunity to change, how we do not want, and I think all of you will agree, no one that I know wants Iranians to dress like us or to listen to our music or watch, you enjoy your life however you want, wear what you want, do what you want, follow whatever religion you want. So I don't think we're trying to push our culture on anybody. But if they turn around and allow the same thing to happen again, it gets to a point that you're like, look, we did what we had to do because of the threat, globally. And, they're local, these are tens of millions of people. And they didn't do anything about it. There's only so much you can do. My gut feeling is that there will be massive change. There's been change in Iraq. And the problem is you're not going to rid terrorism for decades, if not generations. There's always going to be a radical side of it. There'll be a radical side. There's radicals in the United States. There's hardcore racists in the United States. There's pedos. There's always going to be an element of criminality, no matter what country it is. You could rid of the mafia, and there'll always be remnants of the mob somewhere doing some type of organized crime. So there's always going to be a terroristic threat. But if everybody, the majority, stand up and they take control of their country, this will end up being a beautiful thing. I will say this, when you see certain people have the same views of Putin and the president of North Korea, I won't name names. A lot of you in New York know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. Nobody wants war. I don't want war. I just hope, this ends up with, a positive conclusion. But unfortunately, there's going to be unrest for generations to come. There'll always be somebody out there trying to stir shit up. So that's my take on it. It's the best I could say. So, all right. Shout out to Havili, tuning in all the way from down under in Australia. My thoughts on John Cena saying he was supposed to beat Roman Reigns at SummerSlam for number 17, but it was changed because of the return of Brock Lesnar. And if Jericho doesn't return before Mania, who is LA Knight? Who will LA Knight face? Listen, I still think Jericho is going to return. I think he'll be the host of WrestleMania. It's an easy way to bring him back without having him have a match. LA Knight, it's still so up in the air. I mean, listen, there's enough outcry for LA Knight to get a title opportunity. Again, we could end up with a six-pack challenge. When was the last time we had a six-pack challenge for the heavyweight championship? It's been a very long time. I'm not saying it'll happen, but if you decide to go Drew versus Randy versus Cody versus Sammy versus Jacob Fatu versus LA Knight. Yeah, I could see that. Six-pack challenge. Now suddenly you have so many different options to become world champion. Would Jacob Fatu win? Probably not. Could Randy Orton win? Sure. Could Cody Rhodes win? Of course. I don't know how many people would really want that right now. Could LA Knight win? Could Sami Zayn finish his story from a year ago? A lot of people, I've always emphasized that. A lot of people forget a year ago. Remember the night after WrestleMania when Sammy was in the ring with Jay and he had that look on his face and we were all in that moment thought he was turning and it didn't happen. And then you realize, that year, it was a shitty year for Sami Zayn. You remember early on, I have to become world champion. I need to be world champion. And then Karrion Kross, you'll never be world champion. This is a very easy and unexpected way to get Sammy in the world title hunt and possibly win. I'm not predicting a winner at Mania right now because we don't even know what the match is. But I could absolutely see Nick Aldis making this a six-pack challenge. Would you guys have a problem with that? Seriously. If you end up Drew versus Randy versus Cody versus Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, and Sami Zayn, well, is that bad? I don't think so. I mean, it'll suck for 5 people in that match when everything is said and done. But that could get very interesting if it's done the right way. The last time or the first time they did a six-pack challenge, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. You get LA Knight with a world title shot. Jacob Fatu gets a taste of being in the main event. Sami Zayn, there's a lot of things you could do there. Remember a year ago, Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair a year ago won the Chamber, was supposed to be one-on-one, and it turned into a 3-way. And the 3-way ended up being fabulous. Again, kind of throws a little shade on the Elimination Chamber, but for WrestleMania standards, I think people out there would love to see a six-pack if the scenario's right. As far as Cena saying that he was going to beat Reigns for number 17, I mean, of course. I mean, there's been a lot of times over the years where somebody is in position to win or lose a championship and then plans change. Sometimes it's because of someone else's injury. Sometimes it's because of a return. Sometimes it's because, you anticipate in advance. A long time ago, Vince McMahon would book a lot of stuff a year in advance. He would know a year from now what a match would be. And you remember they set up Rock and Cena a year early as well. But the thing is, it is not easy to book things a year in advance because so much could change during that year. Somebody could get injured. Somebody could get red hot. Something could go wrong. Something may fall flat during it that you're not intending. A lot of people who had kind of a flat 2025, I don't think WWE was intending for that to be. I don't think they intentionally look at someone like, yeah, that person, if I'm that person, I would not want to be them in 2026. They think in their mind they're doing good shit. You look at the Wyatt stuff. I mean, we've been complaining about the Wyatts before Halloween, before 2025. Just think, let this sink in. I mean, you had the Wyatt 6 and all those teasing, and they debuted, and then they did what they did, and they got involved with Chad Gable and Final Testament, and then they got moved to SmackDown. And then you realize, okay, Universal Studios is going to do a theme, a horror, haunted house. And suddenly Bo Dallas is missing. Oh, he's injured. Oh, he's not injured. Oh, they're using him. They're not using him. And then you realize, like, we want to keep Bray's memory alive, and we sell some merchandise along the way, and we could have some interaction with Universal Studios. And, then you realize, okay, now what? And you see what's going on now. There's a lantern involved. And then the lantern's on the line. Then the lantern's not on the line. And then it is on the line. Then it's taken. And it's not. I'm like, oh, my God, this is just shit. I mean, I get it. We want his name alive and kept. But this has been shitty for very, very long time. I guarantee in WWE's eyes, they did not anticipate this to be as shitty as it is. But it is. Other people, look at Johnny Gargano right now. The only thing going on with Johnny Gargano is now everybody's planking. They're doing that pose of him laying stomach down, like he's about to get a camera up his ass. It's like, this is what you got. Meanwhile, you see what's going on with Ciampa. Ciampa's having some decent moments in AEW and is kind of having a good time. And WWE is like, yeah, we'll have him lay face down and, we'll put him in different areas. Like, I'm waiting for him to be in a fucking airport in the baggage claim, and the baggage is moving and he just comes out of the chute with his stomach laid down. Like, I mean, just, it's awful. And we could go on and on and on. We go on and on. So, things change with title matches. So, I'll get to Bob in a second. And I guess this is from Patreon, where Avili says that he meant WWE original album from 2004. Rey Mysterio, Crossing Borders, Kurt Angle's I Don't Suck, Dudley's. Yeah, we were talking about music on Thursday, and as far as all the songs, my favorite song for the 04 album is Lie, Cheat, and Steal. I remember when I had Tombstone Radio, we had a version of Lie, Cheat, and Steal with crowd noise at the beginning. And I still have those versions saved on a hard drive. And when you started getting really, clean versions and then coming out with these albums, they would recycle songs because obviously you can't, you're not going to have an exclusive release for every song. But, I'm fine with it. I loved the early albums. In fact, here's a little theme music history that I know some of you out there remember. WWE came out with an album called Anthology. It was like 2 or 3 discs, I think it was, and they did crazy sales on it. Kevin and I came out with a bootleg called Unthology, if anybody remembers. I still have the folder with the track listing and everything. And on our shows, we were selling copies of Unthology. And it was 3 CDs, and it was theme music of everyone else that everybody wanted that WWE did not put out. They had Anthology, we had Unthology. So I could put out the track listing next week and share it, but we sold at least 200 or 300 copies. We would sell them either on eBay or we would sell them through the shows, obviously. But it was fun, man. It was fun. I love Tombstone Radio, man. A lot of you out there, you have no idea what it was like. I still to this day, this is 2002, and people still to this day cannot understand why WWE would not sue me. I mean, and you could go on Wayback Machine, go to 2002 and just type in wrestling-news.com. And you'll see I had in 2002 a radio station online that played wrestling theme music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Every promotion you could think of, including Women of Wrestling, TNA, and everything else. And Glow, WWF, AEW, not AEW, ECW, AWA, WWF, didn't matter. And WWF allowed me to play the music. I mean, some people were not happy with my station, but I wasn't making money off of it. You go on my old website, you'll actually see the player, and it actually still scrolls. It was something, and every day had a different theme. And that, to me, is probably one of my favorite memories of the old days. Because people were just, every day somebody would be like, how are they not taking this down? Why aren't they suing you? And I did it the right way. I looked into it, and I had to meet certain guidelines, could not put the music in past a certain quality. And, Theme music, man. Havili, I was insanely into theme music. I mean, a lot of you remember the story that I paid $150 on eBay to get Steve Austin's Disturbed theme before anyone else. Somebody was selling a 4-track, it was like a studio sample. When Disturbed was going to come out with their album, they had recorded on 4 tracks on a CD of music that they were coming out with. And one of the songs was Steve Austin's theme. This was about 3 or 4 months before his theme actually came out. And I bought it on an eBay auction. I spent $150 on this demo disc just so I can have it on Tombstone Radio. That is the truth. So, thank you for that, Havili. Bob the Builder. Punk never got this type of treatment from Vince. You know, he probably has to pinch himself sometimes. Yeah, life is good for CM Punk right now. Life is good for AJ Lee. It's still horrible what happened with the loss of their dog. But as far as wrestling wise, I mean, you know, there's a lot of pressure, man, especially on him. You know, eat, sleep, shit, wrestling every single day. There is a gigantic grind that is made. There's an overwhelming pressure. You know, it's going to be fascinating a year from now when TKO reveals their revenue for 2026. And if it's not on the level of what they're telling investors, you're going to see a massive drop in the stock next year. CM Punk obviously will likely not be world champion this time in 2027, but you know, you have to admit that they are definitely giving him that opportunity. Like I said earlier in the show, I just don't want it to end up where it's like what happened with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch years ago when they were feuding with Baron Corbin and oh my God, I forgot her name again. Oh my God, Lacey Evans. You know, that backfired big time. I mean, they thought everybody hated Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin so much that they'll be forced to cheer Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. And boy, that couple public relationship thing did not work out very well. So I just hope there isn't a falling out in the future. You know, you see Triple H at the helm. There's a lot to complain about right now, but I will also say the same thing. Who else? That's the problem. Who else? You know, with all due respect, even to people I like Vince Russo and others, but even people that turn me off recently, like Coach and others, like they all, you know, my sources tell your boy that Triple H may not survive 2026. And I'm like, wow, you think he's going to drop dead? No. No, he's not gonna survive creatively. And every time I hear somebody say that, I'm like, okay, who's your boy? Like, what are they telling your boy? Like, what are they telling you is going to replace him? Who's going to replace Triple H in creative? The best name that anybody could give me is Shawn Michaels. And that's kind of a stretch because Shawn Michaels has been NXT. You know, that's like taking a lifelong manager in the minor leagues and suddenly the manager in the major leagues for a top, the biggest team, the Yankees. You know, it doesn't always work that well. So we're stuck with Triple H for the foreseeable future. But you know what is interesting? And I don't mean this to say in a sinister way, but, you know, listen, my mom's going in for heart surgery in March. I don't talk about it much here because it's hard. And trust me, it's painful, but you know, she was pronounced deceased 2 times. She flatlined 2 times 6 years ago. She's got the valve of a pig inside her. Now they found that the valve is too small. And either my mom has to deal with shortness of breath and difficulty doing everyday things and just live that way, or walk around with an oxygen tank, or she's got to get heart surgery again. And I think she has chosen a heart surgery, and she doesn't want to tell us probably until it's right at that point, but we know that she's going in March. And the doctors have said that, look, this is more serious than 6 years ago, and 2 times she flatlined. So there's a lot of crazy thought in our mind that she may not even survive this. That's why they just went to Florida, so my mom could get a little peace and relaxation before this. What's my point about all of this is that when you get handed to you heart issues like that, my father had the same exact thing happen to him what happened to Triple H. Triple H was on the verge of the Widowmaker. The doctor told my father he would have been within 6 weeks if he didn't get this surgery done. And the only reason why they even found out with my father was my father went in for a stress test and he passed out. And when they started running the test, they're like, you need to go to the hospital. And they fucking did a quadruple bypass on him. Saved his life. But the thing is, once you get heart surgery like that, you're on borrowed time. So, you know, I'm sure WWE has thought, like, look, you know, Triple H, not trying to be funny, but he's damaged goods. He's got a bad heart. You know, when you see the professional podcast out there saying, I'm convinced Triple H can have one more match, I'm like, you're a retard. You don't fucking know anything about hearts and fucking pacemakers and fucking quadruple bypass. He's not having heart surgery. Just even Hogan, God rest his soul. When Hogan used to say, I think I have one more match in me, brother. I have the same spinal stimulator in me right now that he had. And when I had it done many years ago, the doctor said to me, the doctor knew I used to do a little bit of indie wrestling stuff. He's like, you ain't fucking doing that no more. He says, I don't care. You fall flat on your stomach. He says, you are not doing that. He says, if you actually accidentally slip and fall, you could damage your spine severely. And that was it, you know, but it was like, do I help relieve my pain? Or, you know, do I not get it done? So every time Hogan would say, I think I have one more match in me, brother, I'm like, you're full of shit. Because the spinal stimulator doctor absolutely said, you're done. There's just no way. It's just the way it is. So WWE, I'm very fascinated what their backup plan is if Triple H were to, be honest, pass. What do you think their backup plan is? What do you think it is? By committee? You think Stephanie gets involved to an extent? What do you think? All right. Hank says, do I think Triple H will open WrestleMania again this year? Oh, yes. Yes. Considering he's not a fan favorite anymore, would he likely get booed? You know what? I mean, Hank, honestly, the casual wrestling fan are not this angered at Triple H. If it's a solid card, the fans will cheer. If I'm WWE, I mean, it's not easy this year because Stephanie's in the Hall of Fame. Stephanie's going to be on the stage with all the other Hall of Famers. But if Stephanie wasn't going in the Hall of Fame this year, I could see her coming out with Triple H. You put her out there with him. Maybe you have Triple H come out there with Shawn Michaels. Maybe you have him come out there with another person. So this way, it kind of like eases the blow a little bit. Listen, I'm a little tired of Triple H, but I'm not as angry as others because here's the thing you need to understand. And I'm sure I know a lot of you already realize this. When Triple H was mostly in NXT, you had some prominent people in the media, wrestling media world, and the podcast world that were trying to convince you that Triple H was being blackballed. WWE was erasing Triple H's legacy, trying to reverse everything that he had built. Which you look back on it and it's laughable. All right, they weren't trying to sabotage the guy. Some of you remember I made the dunce outfit, and I'm like, these people actually want you to think they're treating him like a clown. You even had some people that say it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Stephanie divorces him. I'm like, no wonder why you're a virgin. You know, but the thing is, at that time, they were convinced that Triple H was a victim. They were convinced the black and gold, and WWE sabotaging Triple H. So now they realize what we've been saying all along. Triple H is part of the McMahon regime for 30 plus years. Triple H has been in and around WWE since the mid-90s. Triple H knows no other management up until the last year and a half, 2 years. So why would anybody, people out there convinced you and convinced themselves that Triple H was just biding his time. The day Vince steps down, then I'm finally going to get to do what I want. It's just a matter of time. Be patient. Like he was in the mirror saying to himself, Paul, be patient, be patient, be patient. Your time is coming. Be patient, be patient. And then as soon as Vince was out of there, boom! Triple H's vision in full gear. And then you realize 2 years later, he's worse. He's worse. He keeps telling us that things are going to change and it's going to be epic and it's going to be, he keeps hyping things up and it's not. And they don't realize Triple H is part of the McMahon mindset for 30 years. When TKO bought it, do you remember WWE was going to be TV 14? That when they go to Netflix, they're going to curse and do all this stuff. And you had those same people telling you that, no, it's Attitude Era is back. And you had Nick Khan and others doing important interviews and saying, we're not changing. Why would we change? Look at the revenue. Look at the success. Why would we change it? And we've said all along, you got families, you got kids. You're not going to throw that all away because suddenly, middle-aged men and people who always wanted the Attitude Era but were not born yet or too young to be around it, want it. It was never a thought. So when you convince yourself of something and then it doesn't happen, you are extremely disappointed. Look at the Raw anniversary on Netflix. Remember that with Simple Things or whatever it is? Simple Minds is the group, right? Simple Things, whatever, with that TV show. I'm probably getting the name wrong. But, you think back to like 4 weeks leading up to the anniversary show. Oh, Stranger Things. Oh, look, they're gonna have a live performance. Anybody remember that? They're going to have a live performance. All the actors and actresses from Stranger Things are going to be there. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to do this. Oh, my God, they're going to do this. And then what do we get? We got Raw with a couple of damn good matches, headlining Breaker and Punk. And they were complaining. Oh, they didn't do anything. Nobody even showed up. And why were you reporting that in the first place? Because everybody else was? When you hype yourself up, and listen, I fell victim of that with the crate. I was convinced that it's Jericho because I thought, you ain't hyping this, especially when we talked about it Wednesday with Danhausen. We talked about Danhausen on Wednesday. I said, anything other than Jericho at this point is a massive disappointment. No one was against Danhausen coming to WWE. But if he was revealed in the crate, you're just asking for trouble. And we all fell victim to that. And for anyone out there to think, I just can't picture who WWE was targeting that performance by Danhausen and the girls. Sounds like a fucking 70s cartoon, like Josie and the Pussycats, Danhausen and the girls. What demo in that audience was that intended for? The kids? Who's that intended for? It almost felt like it was intended for CM Punk and friends. It was just like synchronized dancing, and then the lights go out and everybody's running underneath, or he's running underneath the ring. Oh. That's why I want to punch some of these people in the mouth that do these fucking live reactions. Okay, you get it. It's cute. All right, you're happy. It's smiley face, but people I'm like, oh my God. You're just ridiculous. I don't know who they were trying to entertain with that. So yes, Hank, I think Triple H absolutely will open it. I don't think he'll get booed as much as we think. And if they give us a solid card, there'd be no reason for people to boo all that much. Especially if you end up with like Gunther versus Brock and you do the 6-pack challenge and, who knows what other surprises they may have planned. And, oh, yay, Bellas will be fighting somebody. I mean, we might even get fucking Nia Jackson, Last Legend versus the Bellas. Oh, no. Let's see what happens. I think, listen, as we get closer to Mania, I think the card will be strong enough. Most of us, we ain't going to Vegas. We ain't spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So for all of us, we'll be fine with it. The people that are there, when Shock comes in and people spend tens of thousands of dollars to go, you better deliver to those people. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up in 10 minutes. We'll wrap this up in 10 minutes. So, did I leave anybody out with supers? I don't believe so. So, all right, cool. Roderick is asking Jey Uso on ESPN, reminding him of Kev's comments on Jey not being able to be that guy. Kev was spot on. Realistically, how much longer can this Yeet main event level run last for? Well, Jey has cemented himself as to me, he has established him, as far as main event goes, okay? Main event is part of his gimmick. Main event Jey Uso. If he was a bona fide main event, you wouldn't have to say main event Jey Uso. You wouldn't need to say the name also. But I'll say this. He's arguably the greatest tag team of the last 20 years. All right. And I know some people will say the New Day, but I have always said the New Day needed 3 instead of 2. That's why I've always chosen the Usos over the New Day. But I'll say this, as far as a singles wrestler, he has cemented himself as like a 4th outfielder. Like, he's a guy that you could pencil in wherever you need him. Like, if you needed him on a house show to main event on a particular night because somebody got sick or somebody couldn't make it or, things shifted around, he'd be fine. You know what I mean? Like, as far as him being world champion again, I don't see that anytime soon. And there's nothing wrong with that. Jey Uso is going to go down. Listen, it reminds me of Bubba Ray Dudley, okay? Despite the early years of having issues with Bubba Ray, you go back to even TNA days, Impact Wrestling. Yeah, the aces and 0.8s was awful. But if you were being honest, Bully Ray had a pretty decent run as a singles guy. He was surrounded by factions. The Brooke Hogan stuff was a disaster. But as far as a singles guy, he was legitimate as a main eventer. He was legitimate as a main eventer for Impact Wrestling. And he backed it up. But here's years later, and people, first and foremost, will always associate him as one half of the greatest tag team in the last 30 years. Dudley's. No matter what Bully Ray did as a singles guy, in the end, first line, Dudley Boys. Period. That's going to be Jey Uso down the line as well. Jey Uso will not end up like Shawn Michaels, where you don't think of the Rockers first and foremost with Shawn Michaels, but the Rockers is somewhere in that bio. Jey Uso will always be remembered as the Usos, first and foremost. Had dabbled in the singles run and did good with it, but to me, he is not a bona fide threat for the championship. And that's not a negative thing. The problem is Jey Uso, Rikishi, and others will turn it into a negative. I'm fine with Jey Uso doing the Yeet stuff. All right. People having a good time. Good. Fine. That's fine. I just don't want him to become world champion again anytime soon. So, that's not a negative. I just prefer someone else. It's almost like you're friends with I'm a heterosexual guy, so this is why I say I'm friends with a girl, or I'm in school, and I'm friends with a bunch of different people, and I ask a girl on a date, and the girl says, "No, I like you as a friend, but I don't like you that way. I think we should just be friends." Or you date someone, and the person says it to you. Do you turn around and just say, "Fuck you! I hate you! You hate me, you're an awful person, you hate me, and that's awful." No, just that person not looking to disown you. The person is just saying, "Hey, Jay, you're fine on TV. I don't have an issue with you. You could make the people happy in the crowd. But as far as a world champion threat and a singles guy, I'm not interested. I don't like it. I don't want to see that. It gives me a headache, and I think, that's how I look at it. But for some reason, him and Rikishi and now, Jacob Fatu, now that's a negative. The more you tell people shut up and be a fan, the more they're going to get mad at Jey Uso. That's what Jacob doesn't understand. That's what Rikishi doesn't understand. That's what Jay doesn't understand. You could go on ESPN. You could go on fucking Fox. You could go on fucking, What Culture. You can go on anywhere you want. And the more you complain about, oos. Go to the shows, oos. Maybe oos. If you go to the shows, maybe the vibe, and oos, maybe you'll feel different. And my answer will be back the same thing every time. You gonna pay? You paying? No problem. Yeah, I'm not fucking dumping that kind of money just to test myself. Oos. So Jay's not a bona fide threat for the world championship. But as far as him getting periodically penciled in, no problem with it. Notice how none of us really give a shit that he got attacked on SmackDown. Whatever. It could be anybody. It could be Jimmy that did it. It could be anybody that did it. Like, do we really care? You realize that was only done because they had to improvise on Monday. Bronson Reed got hurt. The backup plan is Jay to win the match. And it's like, no problem. We'll fix it on Friday. Logan, you're going to play Bronson in the match. It's exactly what happened. If Bronson got hurt during the match, the audible was Jay over a Grande Americano, and then Jay won, and then suddenly you saw what you saw. That was the plan. Jey Uso was never planned that he would be in the chamber. It was just the impromptu injury. They're like, okay, if Bronson gets hurt, Logan Paul will be his replacement. But how do we get from Monday to Saturday with Logan Paul? Oh, SmackDown. Attack in the back. Attack in the back. That sounds like a great pay-per-view. Attack in the back. Or it could be a horrible porn. All right. Let's start bringing this home. Attack in the back. Bobby Means. What's up, Bobby? Why do I think the late, great Sean O'Haire never made it in WWE? Number one reason, drugs, steroids, roid rage, a lot of behavioral issues. Trust me, I don't remember the guy's name, but some of you remember when Sean O'Haire had that arrest. One of his friends left us some very interesting information about him. We covered it on one of the Minority Report episodes back then. And pretty sure it was Minority Report. And revealed some pretty interesting information. Sean O'Haire was a problem. He had a lot of behavioral issues. Him trying to tease into like MMA stuff was more of just someone who loved to fight people and had a lot of rage in him. and unfortunately had a lot of issues. I mean, that's why he didn't make it in WWE. He when he was involved in WCW, he had issues, but it was so early in his career that it didn't take over. And when he went to WWF, it's almost overnight took over. And you think back what they wanted to do. My God, the devil's advocate stuff, I'm not telling you anything. That to me is one of my favorite fucking gimmicks of all time. That's why when we were kind of getting that with Karrion Kross, Kevin and I were fucking just totally oohing and ahhing over it because we always love that. Like somebody who's telling you, it's okay. It's all right. You could take it. You need it. It's okay. You're not gonna kill it. They can afford it. It's okay. You can do that. You want to. Like you just that devil on your shoulder. It was just it was such an epic storyline, and he had that look. He had that height. He had that size with him. That leather overcoat. Everything about him was fucking perfect. And unfortunately, problems outside the ring took over. And it got to the point where WWF was like, no, we can't do nothing. And he never recovered. So, the Usos are still the tag champs, Havili. They're not going to have to surrender the titles. They've only had an Alpha Academy defense. I'll check your chamber prediction. If I didn't note it on the site, I'll update it tonight. No worries. If you left one, you're good. The Usos, they ain't going to surrender no tag titles. WWE's not that deep with this shit no more. For all we know, it could have been a tag team member who did that. Could be anybody. Could have been a fucking bloodline member. For all we know. Who knows? I mean, listen, obviously, again, we go back to the audible. Bronson Reed was the pick to be in the chamber. And because of the injury, they had to give the match to Jay. And they're like, okay, we'll worry about it on SmackDown. And that's the easiest creative way to get out of it. We'll just have it look like somebody attacked them in the back. Who ends up attacking them? Don't worry, we'll figure it out. Just think, we finally solved the masked man thing, and now we have to deal with another. Just when you thought the whodunit was done with the Seth reveal, now we have to deal with another. Let's just hope to God it's only 1 week. Let's just hope to God that it's only 1 week. For all we know, Austin Theory was the one who took out Jey Uso. So Logan could get a possible opportunity. And then maybe Logan Paul and Austin Theory take on the Usos for the tag titles. You know what I mean? Like it could be something as simple as that. I mean, how Logan Paul and Austin Theory would know that Logan Paul would possibly get a shot, but that's how easy they can cover this up. So, let's just hope they don't wait a month for the reveal. I don't think they will. I think it's probably, I think we'll find out Monday, tomorrow, or a week from tomorrow. I think this will not be something drawn out for a long time. And remember, Roman Reigns is going to be returning. Roman Reigns is back. And then in 1 week, Brock Lesnar's back. Suddenly you got Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar on every Monday Night Raw leading up to Mania. So obviously shit is going to pick up very quickly on Raw. So let's see what ends up happening. All right, let's take two more, and then we shall jet. Roderick fears a division attack Jay. I don't think it'll be Sami Zayn, because Sami is SmackDown, Jay is on Raw. And even if Sami's the reveal, then it's like, okay, what does that lead to? Sami versus Jay? How does that benefit Sami? How does that benefit Jay? It doesn't. I don't think it's a Sami reveal. I think it would be stupid. I don't think it would make sense. I just don't feel it. I don't think that would be the right way to go. I think if they're going to tease Sammy finishing his story, it's all babyface. You're not having Sammy tease finishing his story as a heel. Last year, it was different because Jay was still the champion, and it would have been fascinating to see Jay versus Sammy. But to me, it just doesn't fit right now. If there was only one set of men's tag team champions, then I would say otherwise. But since we have two, it makes no sense for Sammy to attack Jay. Benjamin says, didn't Jericho invent the chamber? Yeah, that's what we are led to believe. He absolutely should have been there last night. It sucks because, again, WWE knew what this turned into. And nothing was done to try to shoot that down. And I don't blame WWE, so to speak, because you want to get as much attention to the Elimination Chamber as you can. Even Jericho. Listen, if Jericho had no intentions on going to WWE and wanted to still be that mosquito, Jericho could have easily shot this shit down 2-3 weeks ago. And people would have eliminated, no pun intended, that thought out of their mind. But they understand they didn't plant that thought. So we ran with it. They're like, okay, if that's what you want to think, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Listen, I could picture WWE Unreal Season 4. Not this summer, but next year. You're going to see, if Danhausen has covered it all, I could picture that creative meeting. The fans are going to be sadly disappointed. Why do they keep thinking this? That's if Jericho returns. Jericho doesn't return. Jericho's not going to be discussed on the WWE Unreal. So, the idea was, there was like Jericho invented the chamber, Bischoff invented the chamber. I think at the end of the day, it's just WWE, their mindset. Let me put it this way. Someone will always be credited with the idea or the concept. I should have been a little bit clearer with that. Someone will always be credited with a concept. But as far as no, that's all WWE. Yes, you're right, DJ. Jericho was more credited with Money in the Bank. But you want to know something? We've had things on polls before. We've had things suspended in the air before. But the idea of having, the concept of a briefcase and, listen, wrestlers come up with great ideas sometimes. A lot of fans come up with great ideas sometimes. So, all right, let's take two more. And we will jet. Chamber was Bischoff. Yes, you're right, Loose Cannon Creations. I do remember Bischoff's name in there somewhere. Few of you asked me if I saw the segment Real American Wrestling over the weekend. Yeah, I did. Trying to get a little extra controversy by having a little post-fight. You know what I mean? If you're not invested in the names, nobody's really going to care. It'll get some buzz, but I think in the end, it's not really going to matter too much of anything. You either watch the product or you don't. Something like that is not going to suddenly get eyes on it. So, yes, Benjamin, you're right. We still don't know who attacked Jacob Fatu. Hey, 2 Fatus attacked 2 Fatu. I get it, 2 for 2. 2 Fatu. Hey, somebody's 2 Fatu. Who? Yeah, maybe they'll put it together. Maybe Jimmy's attacked next. 2 Fatu. 2 Fatu. I sound like Chinese. You're 2 for 2, like in a baseball game. Somebody reported in Japan. Up at the plate, Jacob Fatu. He's 2 for 2 tonight. 2 for 2. I got to be careful because someone out there be like, that's racist. But it's all right when people are like, hey, how you doing? Hey, Anthony, Prince Spaghetti Day. It's New York. Hey, what's going on? It's not racist. Stupids. 2 for 2. Tufa tu. All right, I'm looking at questions. Is it possible that Michael Hayes' unreal comments about Chelsea Green are more storyline based? Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, not everything, but a shitload of what is happening right now is being booked for Unreal. I said this about a month ago on one of the Sunday shows. It's on a synopsis somewhere. I said WWE booking more for Unreal than you realize. They have become obsessed with WWE Unreal. It's like every day is WWE Unreal. I'm telling you. They have become obsessed. Like, this is WWE Unreal. This is like the daily version of it. You know, you're seeing it crossover in interviews, and there's enough people in interview land that will go along with it. Absolutely will go along with it. Hey, I'm walking here. Two-fa-two. All right, let's do one more. Time flies when you're having fun, but I got to get myself a little bit of sleep. Tomorrow, right after Raw, join me in the Discord, DTKCDiscord.com. DTKCDiscord.com. I'll be live right after Raw goes off the air. We'll see what goes down. We'll see if we get a new Intercontinental Champion. Obviously, the Judgment Day are going to throw some criticism to Finn Balor's way. JD will be more sympathetic about it. You're like, Finn, we could have been there for you. Dom will be a wise ass. And then if Dom loses to Penta, then Finn will be a wise ass back next week. And who knows? We'll see what happens. SM Punk. Did I ever buy those generic CD themes? Yeah, I bought plenty of themes back in the day. I would do Napster. I would do SoulSeek. SoulSeek, to be honest with you, is one of the greatest file sharing programs that no one ever heard about. I was a SoulSeek lifer. I still have the file and the program. A lot of you probably never heard of it, but I'm sure it still exists today. Because I last time I was on, it was about 5 years ago. There was a file sharing program called SoulSeek, SoulSeek. I think it's SoulSeek NS. And I first signed up there about 25 years ago, 20 or 25 years ago. And I got so much bootleg music, so much wrestling stuff, videos, even sometimes files. It's file sharing, but the thing is, in order to get, you had to give. Like, you want, you must give too. So if you tried to take files from someone else and you weren't sharing anything, you get banned. And sometimes you're lazy. You don't open your file. So I would always share my music files. I would share wrestling themes. But so if you guys want to Google it, SoulSeek NS, look it up. You'll be like, holy fucking shit. That when Napster died, we were all on SoulSeek and we were like, fuck Napster. It's up until I was on it 5 years ago. And just I can't tell you how many songs that I got off of SoulSeek for free. SoulSeek was big time, man. That's how I ended up making money on crypto. If anybody wants to know this quick story, and then I'll jet. Here's a little story about me with crypto. My only interaction ever with cryptocurrency. I was on SoulSeek. I signed up in the early and mid 2000s, whenever it first came out. And I'd say about 15 years ago, whenever crypto first came out, first became popular, there was a file sharing website. I don't remember the guy, but I was into a lot of club music. My music collection's insane, especially club music from the 80s and 90s, a lot of white label stuff. A lot of you on Patreon have seen a little bit of my white label collection. I still have about 500 records that I still haven't converted to digital. But what happened was somebody came around and was telling us that this guy has all these massive bootlegs, lots and lots of stuff, not just music, but files, programs, Adobe, Microsoft Word, all this like stuff that you would pay hundreds for. This guy had everything. The only thing was it would cost $20 a month to be part of his network, and he only accepted crypto. So what happened was I ended up purchasing, I think, a year subscription. And then this is like 15 years ago, maybe more. It's got to be more than that because it was before Sandy, and Sandy was 2012. So, it's more than 15 years ago. So what happened was I signed up, and I signed up for a membership, and I think it was like $20 a month, but it was, I think, $149 for a whole year if you paid a year in advance. But he only took crypto. So I went on, I think it was Coinbase. Coinbase might have been the website. I might be thinking of the wrong website, but I think that was it. And I purchased like $150 worth of crypto, or maybe $200 worth of crypto. And I gave this guy $150. And I had a very, 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 very tiny amount of crypto left over. And I used the service for about a year, but I didn't renew it because by then I really didn't need anything else. And that crypto just stuck. I forgot about it. I forgot about it for maybe 5 or 10 years. And what happened was, this is when crypto started becoming like $60,000 for one coin or something like that. And I think it was Mish. If you guys remember Mish from Wrestling Soup, we were talking about crypto one night, and I said, way back when, I signed up for this music account and I bought a little crypto. And he's like, whatever happened to the rest of it? And I'm like, I don't know. So what happened was, long story short, I'll get to the point of the story, that I found my old account. And when I went to log on, it said it was texting me a code. Now, when I signed up for this crypto account 20 years ago, whatever it was, I didn't use a cell phone. I used my home phone number. So my home phone number has been on that file for 15, 20 years, whatever it was. So it says it's sending me a code. It can't. It's my home phone number. So I sent an email to tech support, and I said, listen, I'm trying to reset my password, and it's saying it's texting me a code, and it's my home phone number. They had me send them my driver's license. They had me sign an affidavit. I had to supply all this personal information about me, and they said I would have to wait a week. So they investigate to make sure that it's me. And I was kind of blown away by it. I'm like, why do you need my penis size as well? Like, why are you asking me for, my license, fine. You want on my ID? Sure. They were asking me for my social and everything else. And I gave it to them. And after about a week, they let me reset my password. So I reset my password. Long story short, I think I got like $2,000. I had about $2,000 worth of crypto sitting in that account. Because when I first bought it, it was worth literally nothing or next to nothing. It was just when people started talking about it. And what would have been like $50, $40 worth of crypto, it was $2,000, about $1,800 or $1,900. It was just sitting there. And I didn't even know all those years. It was just sitting there. So I fucking sold it. And sure enough, the money went in my account, and I'm like, holy shit. I didn't even know they had that money. That is a true story. But you know what's amazing about it? Could you imagine how much money that guy made? Because he knew to take crypto before it became a thing. There were some stores in my neighborhood 15, 20 years ago that said, we accept crypto. And I remember a pharmacy accepting crypto, and I say to myself, holy shit, they have to be multimillionaires coming off of that, because they were accepting crypto, and crypto was worth very, very little. And then it blew up, and it was like, oh my God. Could you imagine like how much money was made? I mean, I turned $50 into almost $2,000. If this guy had 1,000 customers, this guy's got to be worth $15, $20 million. It's insane, man. It's insane. So, no, you'd be surprised. A lot of pharmacies, a lot of stores, they'll take food stamps, EBT cards, crypto. They'll take a lot of different forms of payment. Now they take fucking Apple Pay and all this other stuff. I mean, that's the future, man. The future is you're just going to go up your phone and fucking scan, and that's it. You do your payment. So, all right. I ended up going a little bit longer, which I don't think anybody's complaining about. So I will return for the sit down 1 week from today. We will definitely get into whatever transpires over the next 7 days. It should be a very interesting week. If you didn't check out the history show from this past week, download it. Fun episode. It's the anniversary of Mark Shapiro turning heel on all of us, saying what he planned on doing with WWE and how they were going to increase their revenue. And he wasn't kidding, man. Removed 100 events off of the live schedule, increased prices. But when you hear Mark Shapiro in that world, that's why I tell you guys, you have to pay attention to the real business world when it comes to WWE. Because if you ignore it and you don't understand it, you'll never get as to why. When you remember the people that were complaining, like, why is WWE releasing people during the pandemic when they're making record profits? Investors were laughing at those people. They're like, duh, why do you think they're making record profits? Because they're streamlining their business. They're realizing you make as much as you can with as little as you can. And when you hear Mark Shapiro say, in so many words, we're going to make WWE so scarce in some areas that people will drive 100 miles and pay premium money to see WWE. They wanted to make WWE scarce, promoting overseas, but, eliminating 1/3 of their shows because absence makes the heart grow fonder. And if you don't give them in certain areas, when they do make a return, people in droves will want to show up. And by the way, I will leave you with this. Shout out to all of you out there. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Shout out to all of you out there. Not many, I think about 7 of you who DM'd me over the weekend or emailed me and sent me a couple of screenshots of them at restaurants in and around Chicago, enjoying a little bit of chicken wings and burgers and watching Elimination Chamber. Some people out there still wanted you to believe that all the watch parties in and around Chicago were removed because they wanted everybody to go to United Center in person. That ended up being a lot of, it was exaggerated. They definitely removed some areas, but some that already had the commitment, they did not take it away. And if you remember last Monday, we brought up at least 3 or 4 different venues that were still advertising. One of them was only 2 blocks away from the United Center. And they were advertising chicken wings. What was that, Joe's? Was it Joe's? They were advertising chicken wings and Elimination Chamber. And you had watch parties in restaurants right around the United Center. And people were reporting that WWE took them all away. So, my friends, much love. I'll definitely catch you on the next ones. And if you're around tomorrow night, join me. DTKCDiscord.com. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Dontony. He's alright. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now, Now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.